The April 19, 2023 Charleston County Historic Preservation Commission meeting. We will be moving agenda items F and G to the beginning of the agenda this evening for the sake of the size of the crowd and for those that would like to speak in favor or opposition to certain situations. So those F and G will be moved to the front, and then we will move with C, D, A, and B. Just for the sake of the time, and again, the number of people here that would like to speak in these particular situations. I'd ask you now to please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Pat?
Sorry, y'all, there's an accident on 526.
Welcome again. The meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This commission acts in review and recommending capacity for designations and removal of historic properties and districts. The commission also reviews proposed National Register of Historic Places nominations. The commission has the final decision-making authority on certificates of historic appropriateness. I'd like to introduce myself, Melanie Millar, as the chair, and welcome you this afternoon. I'd also like to welcome the board members to my left, Jason Crowley, Pat Jones, and Donna Gardner. To my right, Pat Sullivan, Tisha Smalls-Brown, and we have a new commissioner joining us today, Ms. English Purcell. Ms. Purcell served from 2017 to 2021 on the Board of Trustees of the Charleston Museum, serving as secretary for 2 years. Additionally, she is the administrator of the Facebook group Charleston History Before 1945. Of ability for archaeological studies. She hopes to be able to make a difference in protecting properties and landscapes for those that come after us. Also seated to my right, Commission Attorney Mark Bell.
Sure. Over to my left, our staff, Andrea Melisic, she's the deputy director of the department. Emily Piggott will be giving the presentations for the cases today. Marcia Miller sitting at the table. She's our secret weapon. She's awesome. She takes great care of the staff and the commission. So thank you, Marcia. And also, Walt Smalls, my boss, is here, the deputy administrator for the county. I wanted to say, I know this is an unusual room for y'all who've come to these meetings. We usually meet in county council chambers. And we came out of that room into this room because of the construction that's going on there. It's just for 1 month, but coincidentally, we had a case that a lot of people are interested in this month. So just wanted to let you know how we have a lot of people down in the overflow room in the cafeteria that also signed up to speak. So what we're going to ask is that when the case comes up and you speak in favor or against a case, after you've done that, we will request that you go downstairs and to the cafeteria, to the overflow room, to allow the other people that signed up to speak to come in the room so that we don't have 150 people in this room at once. So when you do your,
I'm just curious how many people are down there.
we don't have any, there's quite a few that came in, so
Like over 50?
I don't know the number. Yeah, we will find that
Necessary
out.
for an overflow.
Yeah, necessary for an overflow. So if you all could just help us out there after you speak and allow the other people that are waiting to come up, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to remind you that in order to get a good recording of the meeting, specifically in this room, since we're not actually in chamber, for the minutes, please speak loudly and clearly into your microphones, and that would go with, obviously, the board members and also our guests, our speakers. The next agenda on the item on the is the approval of the minutes from the March 15th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion and a second? And I'm asking staff to call roll.
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay. Staff, we have a roll call?
Chair Millar,
Yes.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. Commissioner Smalls Brown,
Abstain.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Purcell, Commissioner Sullivan.
Abstain.
Do we have enough to
We
approve?
don't. We only have 3.
The folks that have abstained, was it because you were not at the meeting?
Not here.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay,
Do we want to defer until
yes.
the next? I make a motion to defer.
Second.
Can we just do
All
it
those
for
in favor of
For
deferring
what?
the minutes
the
till the
minutes?
next
Because we
meeting?
don't have enough for a quorum today.
Oh, so last month's minutes are just,
No, we're deferring them, and we will,
Since we only have 3 people who voted for it, we don't have a quorum on the vote.
We won't certify the minutes till next month, the next time we meet when we have the quorum.
give an opportunity for people to read through them. Does that sound okay? Okay.
well, I read through them, but I just wasn't here. And
Right. Marche, would the one other give us enough people that were,
We have to have 5, I think.
yeah.
We only have 3.
Okay. Still
Okay.
need to.
What do you think, Mark?
That's Mark, yeah.
If the people that didn't abstained on it, if you have read the minutes, you are in agreement with the minutes, you can vote on the minutes. And all we're asking you to do is to approve what is written down on the paper. So if you are in agreement with that,
I vote in agreement with that. I vote in agreement. Yes.
Okay.
Never run into that problem.
First time for everything, right? Okay, so there has been a motion and a second. We can go ahead, and all those in favor of the approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, move forward. Okay. Now, let's see what we got here.
I think.
All right, am I correct? We're going to move forward to the,
There you go. What's that?
okay. All right, so we have the first agenda item is HIST-11-22-00065, a request for certificate of historic appropriateness. I'd ask Emily to please discuss.
Thank you. As stated, this request is for a certificate of historic appropriateness for 11 single-family dwelling zoning permit applications for Watson View at Copiahe Sound, which is TMS 614-00-00069, 3814 Watson View Drive, a property within the 10-mile Community Historic District. This is an amended application that was granted a deferral by the Commission at their December 2022 meeting and March 2023 meeting. Recently approved applications for this property include a preliminary plat for 11 home sites named Watson View at Copiahe Sound. In June of 2022, the 10-mile community was designated as a Charleston County Historic District. Conditional site plan review approval was granted for the Gadsdenville Road growth gas feeder main in October of 2022, and an application is currently in process for the final plat submission for the 11 home sites known as Watson View at Copiahe Sound. The original application request was submitted in October of 2022 and included final plat approval, 11 single-family zoning permits, and neighborhood signage. At the December 2022 Historic Preservation Commission meeting, the applicant's representative requested a deferral in order to work more closely with the community on their proposal. The commission approved a deferral to the February 15th meeting, which was granted by the chair. The applicant's representative then asked for an additional deferral to today's meeting. To the March meeting. A revised application was then submitted, and it included only the 11 single-family dwelling units, with the applicant stating that they were no longer pursuing neighborhood signage. At that March 15th meeting, the applicant's representative requested another deferral to today's meeting to continue working with the community, which the commission approved. On March 27th, we received another revised application, which included updates to the applicant's letter of intent. The applicant provided a summary of their community engagement thus far, which has included 3 community meetings, as well as written and verbal public comments. As a result of those conversations, the applicant made edits to the style of the proposed homes and also removed their requests for entrance signage and uplighting. Independently, the applicant is also working on several initiatives with the community, including the installation of interpretive signage and proposed road names. This is the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. Here's a map of the historic district showing the location of the subject property along Watson View Drive. The subject property is zoned low-density residential R4 and is undeveloped. The future land use designation is urban suburban cultural community protection. Surrounding properties are zoned R4 or urban suburban residential UR and contain either single family dwelling units, manufactured housing units, or are undeveloped. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. When County Council adopted the 10-mile community as a locally designated historic district, that area covered roughly 680 acres. The 10-mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social and settlement patterns. Here are images of the subject property showing the site work that's already been completed thus far. Here are photos of the neighboring properties along Watson View Drive. Here is the approved preliminary plat for Watson View at Copiahe Sound, developed under the by right R4 zoning, showing 11 home sites and open space. Here is the final plat and the proposed site plan, showing each of the 11 proposed home sites. Please note these are typical lot plans, and the applicant is requesting that any of the 7 proposed housing types, the Glover, Chandler, Capers, Singleton, Simmons, Swinton, and Watson, could be utilized on any of the 11 lots. The applicant provided these images as typical home selections. And these slides show the typical elevations for the proposed development, along with a typical lot plan for each, starting with the Glover elevations and more elevations for the Glover, and then that typical lot plan for the Glover. Next is the Chandler, along with the lot plan, the Capers, and the typical lot plan for the Capers, the Singleton, and the lot plan there as well, the Simmons, and the typical lot plan, the Swinton elevations and lot plan, and then last but not least, the Watson elevations and the typical lot plan. The applicant provided responses to all of the applicable approval criteria, and in their responses stated they would be removing their request for neighborhood signage and uplighting, as well as working with the community on the proposed road names. Because the approval criteria have been satisfied, staff recommends approval with the following conditions. 1, require installation of interpretive historic signage on the property prior to certificate of occupancy issuance. 2, do not allow drive under elevated dwellings unless required to meet the building code. And 3, maximum impervious surface coverage must comply with the ZLDR requirements. All right, so prior to the December 2022 meeting, 6 letters in opposition to the original request were received. Prior to the March 15th meeting, an additional 10 letters in opposition were received. And prior to today's meeting, we also received an additional 10 letters in opposition. And this meeting has been noticed as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We appreciate your comprehensive report. Are there any questions for staff from the commission members?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a question. Since our purview based on the education session we received last time is focused on the architecture, the buildings themselves, and how they fit into the individual property. My question is, do we have the ability to take this lot by lot? They're presenting to us a typical building type, a typical lot type, but I feel like we need to have some specificity of what we're looking at and what we're approving. Do we have the ability to take this one at a time and really look at how each individual house will have an impact or not, or fits within the context for historically appropriateness for this unit in this development within the larger context of the historic district?
So
Jason, I'm not, you're talking about the 11 different home sites, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd have to totally, Joel, can you answer that, please?
Sure. I mean, this is the information that was provided by the applicant. If the commission feels that's not enough information to make the decision of whether or not to approve or disapprove it, then that's up to the commission to request whatever information you think may be necessary. The lots seem to be very similar in size, and the footprints of the houses, while not the same, are similar. But if the commission feels they need more information of exactly what is going to be built on each lot, that's up to the commission to request.
Jason, is that your request?
So, I mean, that essentially that is my request, because it does come into, approval of criteria D, that the applications must demonstrate consistency with prevailing patterns of existing lots, densities, spacing of homes, lot sizes, and shapes and other characteristics of the historic district that the Historic Preservation Commission deems applicable. The staff response is the applicant is proposing a range of lot sizes consistent with many existing lots. I would like to see what that range looks like and how that does match up with the historic district, because I'm not seeing evidence of it, and so it may make more sense for us to take this lot by lot. I mean, we can look at it, holistically. It just, my questions arise of how do we get into the detail if we're just taking this one giant, 11 houses at one time, when we could be looking at this house by house.
I think the lot sizes are, on the screen, it's small on the table there. But I think each of the lots does depict the lot size. And that's the information that we requested, and that's what the information they gave us, the applicant gave us.
Is that something that the applicant could speak more on? Is that something that we would go to now, Joel, or would we go ahead and follow protocol on?
I think it'd probably be prudent to let the applicant explain more of the development.
Okay. Sir, if you would come and introduce yourself. And
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Ellis Leesman. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. For the moment, I'll speak just to the issue that's been brought up, and with your permission, Madam Chair, could continue on to other points. But again, with a neighborhood of this, with a project of this type, there's an element of consumer choice, and I know, Madam Chair, you're a real estate agent. You would understand that. I think that Mr. Crowley would understand that as well. So it is not certain at this time. These aren't being built as spec-built homes. The customer, the end owner of the property would select one of the models that's been presented to you, and then would place that on the lot. But these are the models that are available. These are the lots that are available.
Jason?
I mean, that to me makes sense for a typical suburban development, but in a historic district in Charleston, the Board of Architectural Review looks at every unit, so why would we not look at every unit in Charleston County? So I'm not having to debate that question. I'm just, I will pass it on.
Well, I understand what your point is from a realtor's point of view. I also am a history teacher for 32 years, and I understand the historic significance as well. I think it's important to understand, what's going on each lot. I'm not sure if you would like to make a motion that is something that we look at, individually, or how you would like that to be
I have a question though.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the applicant have any information on, like, an analysis of the other lot sizes that were pre-existing there to compare what you're proposing?
Well, the property was purchased from the Askew family as a single parcel with a specific purpose that it would be subdivided for the specific purpose of single-family homes. And then the families cooperated with us to bring sewer service to the property, again, for the specific purpose that would be divided into lots. And so I'll just go ahead and bring this forward, Madam Chair. Again, we are not in the ability or in the position to dictate which of these 7 models would go on which lots. But these are the 7 models. They've all been presented. There's sufficient architectural detail that's included within those models for you to be able to exercise your purview, which is to look at the form, style. If you were to believe that one of those 7 were inappropriate, but the other 6 were okay, then that, I think, is how we could proceed. But the applicant would not be in a position to meet Commissioner Crowley's request of stipulating which model goes on which lot. That's something that everyone in this room who's ever built a home has been able to have some choice involved in that, and we don't deprive the home buyer of that choice.
Yes, Mr. Crawley.
Joel or Mark, there's nothing that stipulates in our purview that says that we cannot require each individual parcel to come before to become a custom home approved property, or say that one must come and present an individual approval before it gets its final, an individual presentation of what it's going to be, right? I mean, again, our requirement here is to look at the form, the height, the scale, the mass, the form, the architecture, the materials of each building that is coming into a historic district. So is it incorrect or correct to say that we have the ability to look at each individual lot and what is being proposed for it?
I mean, I don't think it's stipulated in the ordinance that it's one way or the other. Each case that comes to the HPC is going to be different, I think. And whatever information that the HPC thinks they need to make a decision on an application, I think they're free to ask it. The applicant has submitted the home styles. We know what the lot sizes are. Staff put a condition on approval that it meet the lot coverage requirements. So by default, they have to meet the setbacks and the impervious area coverage as well. If that's not enough information for the HPC to make their decision, then you need, I guess, to tell staff and the applicant what that information that you may need.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to question staff or any other questions? We move forward.
I have, this is not on the design that Mr. Crowley was talking about, but if you read our ordinance, can everybody hear me?
You got a microphone. I'm sure you can move a little closer. It's on, the green is on. You're on.
Okay, so if you read the ordinance that we were created through, on page 1, it says, we are to safeguard their integrity and foster preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation of the same. And then if you go on, it states that in granting a certificate of historic appropriateness applications, we must consider consistency with the prevailing patterns of existing lots, densities, spacing, lot sizes and shapes, and other characteristics of the historic district that the Historic Preservation Commission deems applicable. So we need to do that, and we're not doing that here.
Well, and if I'm going up, unless there's a motion or of something specific here, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the protocol, okay? And I would ask, as we go through the board members, if you would continue to raise your hand and direct your questions to staff, and keep in mind the time frame that we're dealing with here today, okay? All right, so is there anyone who wishes to speak? I think that's our next sequencing, right? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in support of this request based on the, I guess, whoever we sign in?
I need to say something.
Okay, all right.
We're recording this in the normal room in the council chambers. We just got word that they're having difficulty hearing. Whoever speaks at this podium, make sure the microphone is on and speak loud into the.
That microphone is flashing. Is it dying?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so just make a conscious effort. I know I don't have a problem with speaking loudly, but if everyone else would be mindful of that. So again, we're asking if there's anyone present who wishes to speak in support of the request, who they be called at this time. Of course, the applicant, sir.
Thank you, and this can please double as the applicant's presentation.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Historic Preservation Commission, again, my name is Ellis Leesman. I'm here on behalf of the applicant seeking the Certificate of Historical Appropriateness. As I mentioned in my first comments, this property was purchased from a family that's a legacy family of 10 Mile for the specific purpose that we're here before you today to ask for you to approve, which was for it to be subdivided into lots with sewer and water, and then to be sold as single-family units. We purchased the property for $425,000 after the Askews had purchased it 2 years prior for $22,000. Again, that appreciation, which is 19 times higher, is again with the knowledge and the intention that this property is going to be divided and it's going to be single-family homes. Mr. Craig Askew, the Askew's son, Tim and Pearl, earned a real estate commission on the property, again, with this mutual understanding. It's important to note that purchase occurred in February of 2019. As has been clarified, the 10 Mile Historic District was created in June of 2022. That's approximately over 3 years later. So my client began what you would always do when you're beginning with a residential subdivision. It got its jurisdictional determination letter from the federal government. It's got its approvals from OCRM and from DHEC, and it also has a lot of approvals from the county, all acting in reliance, again, on its contract with the Askew family, as well as all the approvals that it receives from the federal, the state, and the county governments, resulting in the expenditure of over $2.3 million. A lot of this before June of 2022, when the historic district designation was imposed. Emily, if you could show that one slide about the first one about the HPC purview.
Oh, I'm sorry. This one.
Ms. Sullivan, I don't know that you were actually at the March meeting, but the purview slide that Mr. Crowley spoke of is this one here. When you read from the ordinance, what's been clarified by the legal department for the county and by the planning department for the county is in looking at your prevailing patterns about mass, scale, sizing, and things like that. The clarification is if those matters are covered by the ZLDR, which all of them are, those are not issues that are actually within your purview because the zoning is the zoning. This body has its authority, which is certificates of historical appropriateness, but it's not rezoning, it's not writing ordinances. The ZLDR apply. And so, Emily, if you might show that one other slide. That means that 4 dwellings per acre are allowed. That means that lots of 10,000 square feet are allowed, with minimum lot widths, with setbacks, and with maximum heights. So this group can look at architecture, but within these parameters, this group and the purview's been clarified in the prior meeting, if you do take your purview into an area that's covered by the ZLDR, you've exceeded your scope. Your scope does include materials. For example, the siding, the brick, the window placements, those types of forms that are all covered within the models, and all that information has been presented to you. Again, as the last, and Emily, you don't need to re-show it again. Thank you for your help. The last item on that slide about purview was that you can make determinations about architecture, materials, form, color, style. So why was that guidance provided to you? To make sure that this organization, that this commission does not violate state law and that you do not violate constitutional rights of property owners, not just my client, but everybody that owns an R4 property in 10 Mile, in Charleston County, or anywhere else, because they have the right to do what the zoning says that they can do. And just like all the folks that are in this room that live in 10 Mile, and I've met many of them, they've given me their evening time, and we've met and we've discussed in good faith a lot of things. They have those rights. Every resident has those rights. Although 10 Mile is a historic district, it's still part of the United States, and it's still part of Charleston County, which means the ZLDR apply. So we're here to discuss architecture, because density, intensity, and dimensional standards are ZLDR matters. They are not Historic Preservation Commission matters. So the architectural features. Mr. Sherman Wilson, the Director of Architecture for Crescent Homes, drove down from Greenville today. He's the gentleman seated first in the row here on my left. He's worked and he's developed these plans. We've talked a lot about the shingle types, the roof having a low pitch, metal roofs being added, that the lattice work on the elevated homes, which again are not Watson View, it's a different project, but that they're horizontal rather than vertical. That for the homes that have brick piers that they would have brick piers. There's roof overhang, there's other details, all of which evoke and call in aspects of 10 Mile architecture. But let's be clear. If I were to show you two houses, one that was on Johns Island and one was on 10 Mile, and I didn't tell you which was which, it'd be hard to pick out. There isn't a distinctive singular architecture that's there. And these traditional low country style homes fit within those styles and referrals that have been granted by this commission and the prior chair. The architecture of these is appropriate. The 7 models have been presented to you. Those won't change. Those materials would not change. The planning department and the legal department have indicated and clarified what that authority that you have means. And again, it's to architecture, because state law, the state constitution, and the federal constitution say once there's a zoning regulation in place, that's what that is. Aesthetic considerations can be delegated to a BAR or to a group like this, but there has to be specific standards. If there aren't specific standards, your decision would become arbitrary, because what's prevailing? There are 19 lots that are 0.16 acres that are within 500 feet of Watson View. Well, then I'd say that that's prevailing, because that's the majority. Now, are there lots on the other side of 17 that are bigger? Or are there in other places that are bigger? Sure, there are. A lot of them haven't been developed. But A, there's not a prevailing pattern, and B, again, that is a zoning issue. So I know that the community, and I've worked with a lot of them, they're concerned. They're concerned about being displaced, concerned about being forgotten. A lot of them want to make sure that their way of life and their community is protected. We share those concerns, but just like those residents, this property owner has the right to build in accordance with the ZLDR and to use architecture that's consistent and appropriate. These applications respectfully should be approved, and I would ask that you grant them your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leisman. I appreciate your time, and I know you spent a lot of effort with this presentation. I would state that I know what you said is correct with zoning and mandates and laws, and I understand that, but there are
Madam Chair,
more
point of
things
order.
involved.
Can we continue with public comment before
Sure.
discussion?
Yeah. So I guess we'll move forward and just see who else, and if anyone is also willing to speak in favor. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move forward and ask if there's anyone who wants to speak in opposition. And please give your name. And then we have a 2-minute time, as you understand, because of the sheer size of the group today.
Absolutely, Commissioner. My name is Ed Pinckney. Thank you for letting me.
Name and address, please.
Ed Pinckney. I live at 3768 Robbie Glover Road, Allendale, South Carolina, 29429. And first, I wanted to address Commissioner Crowley and Commissioner Sullivan. One of the approval items in your task is to apply things according to the Secretary of Interior's standards for historic treatment of properties. And in that document, you are tasked with approving building by building. In Chapter 67.5, specifically, standards for evaluating significance within registered historic districts. You are tasked to make sure every building that goes into that historic district is appropriate. It says buildings contributing to the historic significance of a district is one which by location, design, settings, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association adds to the district's sense of time, place, and historical development. That is the job of the Historic Commission, not to approve en masse, but to go through and make sure every building is supposed to be there and it carries on the legacy of that district. Just to address some things Mr. Leisman said, I've had the pleasure of working with him as well. In 2016, 10 Mile was designated as a site to be protected, which is even before the 2019 purchasing from the Askew family. Money has no relevance in the historic district, but historic appropriateness does. And one of the elements I'd also like to remind the Commission of is that in the Secretary of Interior's standards, it says that no design that's not previously executed will be constructed. It's hard for you to look at the designs of these homes and say that any of them exist in our community. Secondly, it also says for new constructions should recreate historic floor plans and interior space to include size, configuration, and proportions. Those are the regulations and the guidance that keeps a historic district cohesive, and we would ask that you adhere to that guidance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
They always tell me my voice is very low, so I have to pitch it. So I'd like to thank everybody for showing up here today.
Name and address for the record,
I'll get
please.
to that too.
Okay.
My name is Timothy Craig Askew. I live at 987 Gadsdenville Road, and that's in Allendale, South Carolina, which we affectionately know as 10 Mile. I stand against this development because it will fundamentally change the character of 10 Mile. But I also wanted to mention a few other things before I move on. Mr. Leisman, I went to high school with him. A decent man back then. I also know this young man, Joshua Craig, who I did make a commission on when we sold the property. The intent was for affordable housing and to bring sewer to the neighbors in the area. I'm gonna leave that right there. When I was reading the historical appropriateness of this, I noticed something very odd. I've been to DC and other historic commissions and meetings, and they are advised people and educated in historic preservation and zoning. And what I've seen that the ZDLR, the zoning, and historic preservation are sometimes at odds. I want to make sure that you guys don't pay close attention to some of the things that Mr. Leisman has said about who they bought the property from and how much was paid for it. That's not what we're here to decide. Not at all. And I find it pretty offensive, but that's business and that's the game of life, right, Ed? Right, Ellis?
Just sharing your expectations.
Right. So I don't want you guys to get this misconstrued. I don't want you guys to get this confused. This is a community that I live in, and they need to build houses that are historically neat and appropriate to where we live, how we live, and an attitude to how we live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Desmond Howard. I live at 1036 Gadsdenville Road. I'm part of the 10 Mile community. Here's a question Does it meet the character of the neighborhood? No. If it did, or any settlement neighborhoods, and if it did, why would other communities become historic?
I'm sorry, please repeat what you just said.
I said, do these houses meet the character of the neighborhood, of the community? And if it did, why would, well, not only just our community, but any other settlement community, another word for black communities, we know what we're saying here, right? Why would they become historic if not to be driven out? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
I'm Lester W. Capers. I live 1022 Theodore Road. I stand against this development because the character of a community matters. I'm 74, so I know it matters. It doesn't seem to matter here when it comes to zoning. Seem like, it's forgotten about when it comes to the character, and that doesn't apply. From looking at the developer's website, they have home models between 1,800, 2,000 square feet, which aligns with the community. But from what we've seen, I don't think that works. We're not seeing what they say the website says. So for that reason alone, and a lot of us are here saying, what they're trying to do is really, fog your eyes of what you see. Because what you see is what you got.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Cora Swinton. I live at 1058 Gatsonville Road, Orndorff, South Carolina, in 10 Mile. I stand against the development because I feel the development should not be allowed in the area of the community we are discussing today. An example, for one, the development's doing the high tide. On one side, the road flood. During the mid-high tide, the other side flood. And during a high tide, the whole road flood. It flood with marsh and everything. You can't see the road. You don't know which end. If the flood comes up, you don't know where it starts and where it ends. And this will be everyday life for the people that's gonna live on that place. They don't know how they're gonna get out. It's gonna be a catastrophe. A catastrophe. Believe me. They don't know what they're getting into. And like I said, the developers, they have no consideration for the people that live in there. They don't even have no consideration for the people that's gonna move there. They don't know what they're getting into. They don't know what they're getting into. So therefore, I stand against the development. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Joanne Howard. I'm at 1036 Gadsdenville Road, Owendale. I'm at the corner of Watson View and Gadsdenville Road. So my concern and my opposition is a little bit different because I used to have a ditch. I have no ditch. So when it rains, it's level with my property. And my second concern is I have a driveway on Watson View as well as a driveway on Gadsdenville. Well, the Watson View driveway, which I've tried to talk to the surveyors about it. They had to dig my driveway to lay pipes and stuff down. That my driveway is not like it was before. It has been devalued, and it's an embarrassment to me. And when I call it to their attention, they won't even listen. That's why I refuse to talk to them now. Thank you.
My name is Katie Wright. I live at 3861 Watson View Drive in Owendell. In fact, Joanna there, she's my sister-in-law. We live next door to each other. And I've seen what she's talking about, and even the tiles in our ditches, they are filled with, I don't know, grass, dirt, whatever. But I stand against this development because I don't trust the developers. They will not abide by what's written on this application. I can tell you that. And at the end of 2022, according to Live 5 News, Crescent Homes had 11 lawsuits against them for the construction of allegedly substandard homes in Charleston County alone. So I think that once the developers get their approval, they are going to build whatever they want to build, not what they showed us in the pictures, but whatever they want. And I would like to ask the board here a question. What are what they call low-income housing? How is that priced? Low-income housing. On our road, the sign says, what is it, 700,000 and up? We were told that these houses would be low-income houses. Low-income for whom? Do you have an answer for me?
Ma'am, I was told that you were just able to speak, but we're not, that's not part of what we're.
Oh, well, you don't give answers. You just
Well-
want us to speak. Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Marilyn Glover, and I live at 3840 Victoria Glover Lane in Owendell. I stand against the development because the 10-mile community cannot support the enormity of this project. Right now, we're discussing 42 homes. That's at least more than 126 vehicles on our roads. Mind you, we have no sidewalks, no speed bumps, and a major thoroughfare that now has car racing up and down the road. 84, let me go back a second. Trucks pulling boat traffic to a public landing on that same road. 84 cars and probably 42 more golf carts will wreak havoc in our now over-congested roadway. Our elderly community, that's me, our children risk lives each day. We cannot take healthy walks to our beautiful waterway. If any member of this board has been to 10 Mile, then you no, we don't have the infrastructure to do this safely. We are an aging community. Major flooding will definitely be a consequence of these developments. We've got an increase in king tides due to global warming and rising sea levels. I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Glover.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerome Vanderhorst. I live at 1039 Theodore Road, Owendale, South Carolina. I am a retired military soldier. I'm a retired educator, and I live all over the world. And with that being said, 10 Mile community is my home. I love it. We love it because I've seen the way how the neighborhood has changed, and it's becoming to the point that is losing its southern charm. There are too many homes being built in the area. 10 Mile community, as we know it, is rapidly losing its southern charm again. It's increasingly becoming just like Charleston, National, Park West, Darrow Creek, Hamlin Plantation, the Ion, just to name a few. The current infrastructure does not support the many homes being built in the area. It proposes many safety concerns. The infrastructure does not support the cars, the traffic in the area. I wish that this developer would have done or do a current speed study and density study to see if the area support these many cars that are coming in the area. Again, it proposes a very, very real safety concerns. We've already had 2 fatalities that I know of, maybe 2 years ago in the current subdivision that's there now. And I hate to say it, but let's be real about it. It's inevitable. With that many cars, that many traffic, it will happen again. So please, I am against approving these many homes being built in the area. And everybody that's here in the room, and I wish we had a camera we could see downstairs. Would you please stand, the 10 Mile community, if you're against this homes being developed in our area? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Frances White. I live at 2015 Hammond Drive, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. The proposed subdivisions do not demonstrate consistency with prevailing patterns of existing lots, densities, spacing of homes, lot sizes, or shapes that are characteristic of the 10 Mile Historic District. While there may be 40-something existing lots that are 4.4 acres or less, there are more than 300 lots that are larger than 0.4 acres. Here's more data based on approximate figures. And this doesn't include commercial, undevelopable, or agricultural property. 16 undeveloped lots are 0.4 acres or less. 129 undeveloped lots are larger than 0.4 acres. 33 developed lots are 0.4 acres or less. 206 developed lots are larger than 0.4 acres. 92 homes are over 2,000 square feet. Most of those homes are on lots that are larger than 0.4 acres. 168 homes are less than 2,000 square feet. Regarding the lots that are 0.14 acres in size, the homes are less than 1,600 square feet. Lots that are less than 0.4 acres with homes greater than 2,000 square feet is not a prevailing characteristic of this community. Density of residential lots in the 10 Mile Historic District is less than 0.8 units per acre. And that doesn't include the roadways like the applicant's data includes for their lots. If the applications are approved, as they currently are, the character of this community will forever be changed, and not in a good way. It will serve to dissolve and erase the rich heritage and sense of community, the pattern of settlement that we're trying to hold on to. It will no longer be a community. It will become a subdivision with residents disconnected from each other. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am, would you repeat your name? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Filippo Ravalico. I'm with SCALP. We have submitted written comments on behalf of the association before the March meeting and again this week. I had some prepared remarks I'm going to keep for the next item if we get to it. I just wanted to take this minute and a half that is left to point out a couple of things from Mr. Leisman's presentation. So,
Excuse me, could you give us your address, please, sir?
yes, my personal, well, the office address is 510 Live Oak Drive, Mount Pleasant. So it was a great address to the wrong audience. It sounded like we were in court discussing the in and out of vested rights and pending ordinances and all of this. This is the Historic Preservation Commission. I understand that some believe that this application, the Watson View and the other presented by Crescent Home, should be given some special treatment, deference because of timing and legal issues. But there's nothing of this sort in the Historic Preservation Ordinance. There's no exemption, there's no exception, there's no grandfathering. You have to follow the ordinance. The slides that was shown, that's a slide from staff. You cannot override an ordinance with a slide. It doesn't even take an attorney to point that out. So, a couple of things that he said in his presentation. Property rights. I mean, it takes some gall to speak about property rights with that oomph, where we're trying to save the heritage of historic African American settlement communities that have come out of chattel slavery, among other things. And so, everything at due time and in the due place. This is not the place to talk property rights. This is the place to talk about historic appropriateness. And another point he made in his 2 minutes, in his longer presentation before, is that there's no specific standards. There's no prevailing standards. I really encourage to read the email that Mrs. White submitted to you all last night and that she was just summarizing. There is an objective and clear baseline for this commission and everybody else to come to make up their mind about whether this proposal is historically appropriate or not. Is the existing record, and it goes back 20 years. It's the parcel viewer of the Charleston County Register of Deeds. It's there. The lot size, the spacing, the style, And so I will reserve some more comments for later, but I just wanted to make sure that you keep your eyes focused on the ball, which is, are this project historically appropriate? Vested right will be adjudicated in court if and when needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is there anyone downstairs that...
I believe I was told that everyone had come in that was willing to speak in opposition. I'd like to thank you all for your time coming out in your, what you had to say. And we are hearing what you say. Before discussion, is there a motion and a second from the commission?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I make a motion that we take each lot individually to consider the historic appropriateness of that particular lot. We are not here to look at the overall site plan. We're here to look at the individual architecture of each property and how it fits into the context. So I'd like to make a motion that we take each individual 11 lots individually.
My question would be to Joel. Is that something that you say that it's something that we can make the decision, is that correct?
Yeah, whatever that the commission feels like they need to make a decision, I think it would be, whatever that is, and you all agree on it, that's what we will try to deliver and request the applicant to deliver.
Okay, so there's been a motion to look at each lot individually as far as structure and size, et cetera. Do I have a second? There's been a second. At this time, so we have a first and a second on the motion. Would we take a vote count for that? Or is there discussion?
Open up for discussion
Okay.
for this. My reasoning for this is you know, as we have been discussing and considering, we are not here to look at the overall site plan. And we need to understand how each lot and the house that ultimately sits on it will fit into the larger context of the historic district. And the information that was provided of general types, I believe that we should ultimately determine a specific house that comes on it. And we should be deciding on that, in my opinion.
Any other discussion from the board? Okay.
I do have a question.
Okay.
So would that be when someone purchases a lot, then they would choose a plan, and then when would that process take place, where we would?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
I think that basically, if the commission wants to look at this as a whole in the sense of the 11 lots for this particular case, and the applicant can provide the requested information, we'll see if the applicant wants to bring all 11 of them at that time.
I feel like it was made clear that our purview was not to look at developments, and I feel like this has been presented as a development. And, you know, there's another piece of property on the agenda that's an individual home where we're looking at every single detail of that home. So I don't see why this isn't any different. So I feel like we need to get down to the nitty-gritty of the homes and not the zoning issues.
Yes, that's a very good question. And I think we can leave that up to the applicant to figure out if they want to bring it one by one or as a group to the HPC. And for all intents and purposes, it's basically a deferral, a request for more information from the commission. So is there a time frame that we have for that? Okay. Yeah. So
It would depend on when the applicant can get us the information, then we could be able to place it on an agenda at that time.
it may be next meeting, it may be a future meeting date that the requested information is presented. And of course, it's up to the applicant whether or not they were willing to present that information. Yeah. I think the applicant has a question.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, thank you. Very briefly. Again, just to help with the commission's deliberations, we would not be presenting the application differently from how it's been presented today in terms of these are the 7 plans that we would come forward. We would not be in a position to dictate which on which. So I just wanted to say, to the extent that we're going to have a deferral, it'd be a deferral that the applicant would say, we would come back with the same thing, not out of disrespect, but again, we don't make those choices at this point. These are the 7 options. You know what the 7 are. You can look at the architecture, the form, the shape, the roof lines, the windows, all of those types of things. So I just wanted to, just for purposes of being transparent and efficient, just to go ahead and respond.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I mean, you
We
made it
should-
very clear
we should
what
be-
our.
Hold on a minute. So I would, go ahead in English. Are you, this a question for the applicant, or are you just in?
Just a comment.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, well, actually for him, you kind of made it clear in your presentation what our responsibility was, so, and this is my first meeting, so I apologize, you know, if there's any confusion, but just want to make sure that, you know, I understand that this development was created prior to it becoming a historic district. However, because it is a historic district, usually every single home that is being built in this district has to go before this commission. So I don't see why this would be any different. So I don't know all the zoning aspects of it because I'm just a citizen, but that's my understanding. So perhaps we just need to defer and get more information.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. And all I would say, and not meaning to repeat myself, is that it would be these 7.
I understand.
So you
We
do
may
have
defer.
the 7, and it would be those 7. And so there's not any mystery house or omitted house that's not within that purview. But thank you for your comments and for the opportunity to respond.
So there's no need for deferral. Go ahead. Jason?
Sorry, I don't mean to occupy the time. I'd open up to the commission if we want to specify my motion before we vote, that we not only take each building lot one by one, but that we maintain the ability to approve a specific building per each lot, as we would vote on a certificate of historic appropriateness, just like we will on 4 other applications today. We will be approving a house on each lot that is specifically designed for that lot, just like it occurs in other historic commissions, BARs, architectural review boards, and other jurisdictions, as mandated by the Supreme Court case of Penn Central versus City of New York in 1978 that determined that we have the ability to look at this like this. Or we can maintain the motion as it was. But
Excuse me, are you, Jason?
yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Gardner,
Yes,
please, speak into the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarification.
I can't.
You can't hear me?
The mic must not be working.
The mics aren't for us,
they're
it's
for
for the
downstairs.
recording,
Well, then-
so we need to
Want me
talk
just to
loud.
project?
Speak louder, please.
Commissioner Jason Carley, I just wanted you just to clarify your motion, because I just wanted to be clear that we're not only looking at just the lots, but also each particular design, home design.
So
and
the
for each
motion
lot.
that has been seconded is just to consider each building on each lot. I open to the floor a willingness to amend my motion, which would require another second, or the person who made the second to approve it. That if we want to provide specificity, we can do that. I would be willing to amend my motion to specify in it that which we would then vote for, because we have not voted, that each lot would be considered and we would approve a building design for each lot, because the applicant is saying that they are going to continue to present multiple buildings to us. Perhaps we need to just go ahead and use our purview to approve one building for each one.
Jason, I'm just not following you.
Okay,
Sorry.
then never
You're-
mind. I'm going to just maintain the original.
Well,
Maintain the original motion, or would you like to go ahead and amend it, and then the second can decide whether she would like to follow through? So would you just
I
repeat
will-
your motion, please?
I will amend my original motion that we consider each individual lot, the house proposed for the individual lot, and select the building that is most historically appropriate for that lot.
select the building, that means we have a choice of buildings.
The applicant said he's bringing 7 different buildings to each lot, so we need to know. We need to vote to decide, are we going to allow all 7 to fit on any? Or are we going to choose the house per each lot so that we know exactly what gets built on the lot that's appropriate?
How many designs are there?
7.
Okay, so we're going to see 7 different designs.
Yeah, we're going to
Right.
choose which design goes on each lot, correct?
Yes.
After looking at 7.
But mind you, it's going to be the same 7 he presented today. He's already stated there will be no change. It'll be the same 7 we saw a little while ago each time we come back.
If I could add for
Yeah.
clarity, then the applicant has chosen to present on all of the applications and at once, because he has said there's only 7 options that a homeowner can choose from.
Yeah.
And at the moment, there are no potential buyers, and so it's difficult to determine which house will be going on which lot. So therefore, he's asking this commission to say, hey, I agree. This commission agrees that one of these 7 is appropriate in this subdivision. Therefore, the homeowner can come in and pick one of these 7 that have been pre-approved by
that.
the HPC.
Which
But what I'm understanding, excuse me, Jason, is that we're not, the two motions are not comfortable, and they, maybe I'm speaking, they're not comfortable with that general choice that the potential homeowner is going to make, that they have the options. We are saying that they're saying that they want to be the ones to make the option based on what we feel is best suited for this lot on the historic appropriateness. It's not just one size fits all. It's not okay for all any of the 7 to go on this one particular lot, that we would like to have more time to scrutinize which is best. Is that?
Yes. Yes.
When you say,
And we're going to try to continue, wrap this up, but Pat, what else would you?
you say determine which one is best, so are you saying if there's only one we think is appropriate, then that's the only one approved to be built?
Well, my concern is there's 11 lots with 7 houses. You might get one house that every single person wants to buy out of those 7, and suddenly you have 11 houses that all look exactly the same. So you have no variety. You have no distinction of unique characteristics of the streetscape. And there's 7 houses, for example, along Watson View Drive. You know, what if they did one of each, and then the 4 in the back were all the exact same one, or something like that? I mean, which again is why we need to really be looking at the individuality of each lot, because we have to know what house is going where.
I'm going to, at this time, try to reiterate what I think the motion is, and we'll decide whether we want to move forward. But the motion, my understanding from Mr. Crawley, is to consider each individual lot, and out of the 7 choices that have been presented by the developer, choose the home design that is best suited for the lot on each of the 11 situations. Am I understanding you correctly? And do I have a second to that particular motion?
I second.
Okay. I would like to just ask council if there's anything else that we should be mindful of before we take this vote.
And I think it's important for this commission to be mindful that it's difficult for the applicant to tell you which house is going on which lot, because as they have stated, the desire is to have unique homeowners choose which one they would like for their home.
Then they don't need to bring the house. They don't need to bring the lot. They can wait. Why do we have to rush to approve these all? Why can't, when they sell a lot, they come back and say, this is the house that we want to buy here, or we want to build here?
Well, I have a question. What do we do with the recommendations that staff has made?
Those are just recommendations.
That was if it was approved.
Okay, so we're just disregarding what staff is recommending.
Not disregarding, but mindful of the fact that this is, it's being the motion right now, and it would, maybe it does align, maybe it doesn't align based on, what our decision
There'll be a new
is.
staff report with whatever future application comes.
May I make a, I don't mean to go over and over this, but, this is a development.
It is.
And I think that's where we're kind of confused as to, what we can vote for and against. Because we have people here that are speaking out against this development as a whole. So where does that leave this commission and what we're voting on? That's what I'm confused about. So are we voting yay or nay to this development?
No.
Or are we, so then what are we discussing?
Because the subdivision's been approved.
So it's a development which is not in our purview.
Right now, before the board is whether or not the 7 designs that they're presenting are appropriate for the lots that he is proposing. So then the simple question is, does the HPC like models 1 through 7, or do they only like 1 through 5?
And it sounds like the HPC wants to know which model is going to go on a specific lot before they can make that decision.
Yes, that is correct.
Madam Chair. Nate, on behalf of the applicant, can I offer a brief comment?
One quick rebuttal, please.
No,
sake
not
of
even in
time.
the form of rebuttal. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Again, the developer also is concerned about the streetscape. And so I wanted to just offer that no two houses are ever allowed next to each other that are identical or across from each other that are identical. And should the HPC choose to make some conditions of, for example, no more than 3 of any particular model, those types of things, I just wanted to say that we have flexibility there, and there'd be no intention to have identical homes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think I was.
Well, and if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
And what are we comparing the patterns to are we comparing the patterns of the 7 houses that he's proposed, or are we comparing them to what's in the neighborhood to just determine what's going to be the best house to fit on that particular lot?
Jason, since this is your proposal, I'd like for you to answer that, please.
I would think that we would be looking at the prevailing patterns of the historic district, which is why we need to take each one individually to determine how it fits in with the patterns of the historic district, because this is a historic district. It's an infill project in the historic district. So, for example, when the city of Charleston's BAR looks at an infill development on the peninsula downtown, they look at the similarities of the surrounding neighborhood and whether or not those new buildings fit within that context. They're not looking at whether or not that lot should be built. They're not looking at the subdivision or the development or how many lots can go on it. They're looking at each individual building, and I think that we need to be doing the same.
And would your proposal narrow the choices overall from 7, maybe even down to 1, but they're indicating that they can't have, the same house next to each other? Or are we just saying that for this lot, you could pick 1 through 3, and for this lot, you can pick 4 through 7? I mean, what are we?
I mean, my personal opinion is that a highly sophisticated home builder should be able to take the notes and the feedback from the public and the conversation today, and perhaps even come back with new buildings that fit within the character of this, instead of coming back, tweaking a dormer here or a board and batten there, and come back with some real appropriately scaled structures. And I'd be happy to provide some notes and feedback of what I think should each go in, but that's where I think that we need to have individual lots at a time, because I think that there are some places where we need to be dictating that they shouldn't have garages in the front, and they need to have a garage somewhere else, or maybe no garage at all. But by looking at 11 lots at once, how do we get into that specificity?
Is there any other discussion at this time? Okay, to repeat the motion. Are we clear on this motion? I mean, is everyone clear on the motion and how it's been seconded? Do you need me to repeat it again?
Please
You good?
repeat it.
All right, my understanding is that the motion has been made and seconded, that we will consider each individual lot of each of the 11 and make a decision on the appropriate home that we feel best fits the community historicness, and you make a decision on lot by lot, like we do on all the other lots that we hear. No, sir. I mean, this is not appropriate this time.
He had a chance to rebut and make clarity. He had 2 chances.
I understand, sir, and we're just giving him the opportunity because we have already made the motion and it's been seconded, and at this point, we're going to vote.
Well, I'm trying to add context to what you're already saying. That's all I'm trying to do.
Sir, we understand where you're coming from, okay? Promise that. We understand. At this time, if there's no other discussion, can we go ahead and call the roll? All right, go ahead. Excuse me.
One for clarification. So, just to be clear, before I decide what I'm going to do, Jason, to your point, so if we are looking at one particular, we just take one lot, and we go house by house, and we determine none of these work for that lot. Is that a possible decision we could determine per that?
I personally would think that we would want to find a way to get to yes, because our purview is not to deny the ability to develop these lots, but we need to be looking at and send back and provide feedback and notes to be able to go back to make sure that the ultimate design I don't feel like we need to be rushing on each individual lot. That these processes take time. But no, I don't look at this as a way to deny the development bite by bite, but to make sure that what gets developed is as close to being in character as possible. We don't have the ability to determine the density or the site plan. Planning has done that. So we are here to make sure that what gets built is architecturally complementary to the characteristics of the historic district. So perhaps that may be looking at a certain lot and saying that, this one should have a smaller footprint and give the directions and specifications how we do it. But I think we need to look at it on the lot. And I think that we need to look at the number of stories per each house on each lot. And we need to make sure that what gets built is of the quality that supports and complements and enhances this historic district, not detracts from it. Okay. And I would ask the question, and maybe I'm opening up a whole new can of worms, but ask the question of landscaping and how that work fits in with there as well. But perhaps that is a thing that I just keep to myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's call for the vote, please.
All right, Chair Millar,
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Smalls Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Excuse me, sir, I didn't mean to disrespect. I just know that we bring one person in, and man, it's, everybody wants to speak as far as,
We're much more civil.
Sir.
We are much more civil.
Okay, thank you for your comment, though. Yes, sir. Okay, this is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Each appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. Okay, all right, moving forward. The next agenda item is HIST-11-22-00066, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. Again, Emily, we'd ask you to discuss this, please.
Thank you. Again, this is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness for 10 single-family dwelling unit zoning permit applications for the enclave at Copiahe Sound, TMS 614-0000178, which is 978 Gadsdenville Road, a property within the 10 Mile Community Historic District. This is an amended application that was granted a deferral by the Commission at their December 2022 and March 2023 meetings. So recently approved applications for this property include a preliminary plat for 10 home sites named the Enclave at Copiahe Sound. In October of 2021, there was an approved property line adjustment between the subject property and TMS 614-0000209. In June of 2022, the 10 Mile community was designated as a Charleston County Historic District. Conditional site plan review approval was granted for the Gadsdenville Growth feeder gas main in October of 2022. And an application is currently in process for the final plat submission for the 10 home sites known as Enclave at Copiahe Sound. All right, so the original application request was submitted in October of 2022 and included final plat approval, 10 single-family zoning permits, and neighborhood signage. At the December 2022 HPC meeting, the applicant's representative requested a deferral in order to work more closely with the community on their proposal. The Commission approved a deferral to the February 15th meeting. The applicant's representative then asked for an additional deferral to the March meeting, which was granted by the chair. We then received a revised application to include only 10 single-family dwelling units, with the applicant stating they are no longer pursuing neighborhood signage. At that March 15th HPC meeting, the applicant's representative requested to defer the request to today's meeting to allow time to continue to meet with the community to discuss their concerns. The commission approved that deferral, and on March 27th, a revised application was submitted, which included an updated letter of intent. All right, the applicant has also provided a summary of their community engagement, which has included 3 community meetings along with written and verbal public comments. The applicant made changes to the style of the homes and removed their requests for entrance signage and uplighting as a result of those conversations. The applicant is also working independently with the community to address items like interpretive signage and road names. Here is the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. Here's a map of the 10-mile historic district showing the location of the property along Gadsdenville Road. The subject property is zoned low-density residential R4 and is undeveloped. The future land use designation is urban, suburban, cultural community protection. Surrounding properties are also zoned R4 and contain either single-family dwelling units, manufactured housing units, or are undeveloped. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. When County Council adopted the 10-mile community as a locally designated historic district, the area covered about 680 acres, and the 10-mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social and settlement patterns. Here are images of the subject property showing the access off of Gadsdenville Road. Here are photos of the neighboring properties along Gadsdenville Road. Here is the approved preliminary plat for the enclave at Gadsdenville, developed under the by right R4 zoning and showing 10 home sites and open space. This is the final plat. Here is the proposed site plan showing each of the 10 proposed home sites. Please note again, these are typical lot plans, and the applicant is requesting that any of the 5 proposed housing types, the Chandler, Simmons, Singleton, Swinton, and Watson, could be utilized on any of the 10 lots. The applicant provided these images as typical home selections. All right, and now we'll move on to those elevations and typical lot plans. So first is the Chandler and the typical lot plan for the Chandler, as well as the elevation for the Simmons and that typical lot plan. Elevations for the Singleton, and again, the typical lot plan for the Singleton. Elevations for the Swinton, and lot plans as well. And then, of course, the Watson, and the lot plan for the Watson. All right. So prior to the December 2022 meeting, 5 letters in opposition to this
All right, this time, are there any questions? Move forward then. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support the applicant here? Mr. Leesman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in interest of everyone's time,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if Commissioner Crowley may intend to make a similar motion.
I will.
And again, obviously, people would, in your discretion, Madam Chair, would have the opportunity to speak again. A lot of the similar issues are presented, and if Mr. Crowley would intend to make a motion again to do a lot by lot, and whenever it's procedurally appropriate for him to make that motion, that could just allow for everyone to sort of reiterate what they said before, and for the commission to go about its business.
Yes, sir. Is your stance still the same?
Yes. And, again, well. And with this deferral, again, we can take that month. I'll speak of Watson View since you haven't taken action on this one. To come back with those sort of stipulations about no 2 versions of the same home next to each other, and we can look into whether there may be some sort of a set of conditions that might help. You may decide that you want to specify a specific house per lot, but I think that there could be some ways for us to come forward and make the commission more comfortable with what the permutations or possibilities would be. So again, just to reiterate what had been said before, we have similar, a lot that's in the application has already been stated. So again, in deference to Commissioner Crowley's anticipated motion, I just would reserve that for.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. So I'm assuming, is there anyone else? We have no one else in support. Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition, asking you to please come forward with your name again and your address. And if you would, if some of your concerns are the same, please just state the time.
Understood,
Yes,
ma'am.
sir.
So my name again, Edward Pinckney. I live at 3768 Robbie Glover Road, Allendale, South Carolina, 29429. My concerns are the same as this time. I asked you to approve lot by lot. But additionally, I have a question. If we can go to the property history. And this question is more so for council and staff. According to the ZDLR 8.4.6, preliminary plots expire after 2 years, and then they lapse, and they're no longer able to be any adjudicated in any manner. Unless this has been extended, this preliminary plot has lapsed, and therefore there should be no motion on it at all. Thank you.
Was that a question?
That's a question.
Oh, yeah, I'd have to check with the subdivision administrator to see if there was an extension involved. The subdivision planner. Usually, I will say that usually if a preliminary plat gives the opportunity for the applicant to move forward with the construction of the site, and we don't stop that from happening when that's been going on.
No. The ZDLR specifically states it must be requested by the applicant to be extended.
Yes. Yeah.
And if it hasn't been requested, then this has been lapsed.
Yeah.
So
I will check with the subdivision planner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pinckney. Yes. Ms. Sullivan?
Mr. Evans, when you get the answer to that, could you please send that information out to all the commission members right away? Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Can we ask a question of the?
No.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Again, Jerome Vanderhorst, 1039 Theodore Road. Just to reiterate, my concern is just make the houses fit the historical preservation area. We know it's hard to stop growth, but just follow the rules. Just follow the rules and make it fit. And again, just to reiterate again, do another speed and density study, because with these existing subdivisions we have already, an existing neighborhood that's there already, does not support the infrastructure. It's a very, very, I believe, detrimental safety concerns for everybody in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. To staff pertaining to. Okay.
Again, my name is Cora Swinton. I live at 1058 Gadsdenville Road, Allendale, South Carolina. My sentiment is the same as before. I stand against the developments because I feel the developments should not be allowed in the area of our community that we are discussing. And again, about the high tide and the low tide. Like I said, one end of the road floods and the other end floods. And when it's a high tide, the whole entire thing is flooded. And like I say, you don't know one end from the other end, because the marsh and the water is on the road. You can't see the road. And the people that's going to live in that section, they don't know what they're getting into.
That's all. It just seems. Maybe there needs to be a bridge at this point.
My name is Katie Wright, and I reside at 3861 Watson View Drive in Owendale. That piece of property that we're talking about now, we viewed it with Pat Sullivan one day, and that was the first time I was there. And I noticed that in all of the properties, they did build it up high with dirt. So that leaves like a slope. There are two houses at the front of this piece of property, and when it rains, of course, it floods, the water drains down, it floods their yard and everything. So I am against the developers because I don't see what they're doing to prevent a lot of the flooding that's going on in this area.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again. My name is Timothy Craig Askew. I live at 987 Gadsdenville Road, directly in front of this development. I do not support this development. I'm surprised that Mr. Leesman didn't tell y'all who he bought this property from and how much they paid for it. I asked Joshua Craig when we first knew that this thing was going, when the construction started, I said, Joshua, my neighbor over here, Mr. White, I said, you guys have to go talk to him and Pete Nelson. You got to go talk to these guys because they're going to be surprised. They're not going to know what's going on. I asked Joshua, I said, Joshua, when you come to this meeting, you need to talk to the people, go find out what the needs are. He did none of that. And we live in 10 Mile, historic preservation area, a Gullah community. We trust one another. I'm going to tell you, and I expect you to do what you said you were going to do. And the reason why I don't support this is because these guys are not going to do what they say they're going to do. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to build these houses with the proper historic connotations. They're just not going to do it because they do not care about the Gullah community. They don't care about black people in settlement communities. That's just a fact. They've proven it thus far. When they were building this community, they had to have a water pump put in to tap the sewer line. I came home one day, there's a Goodwin pump in the right-of-way, loud. I said, y'all could have at least knocked on my door, put a note on the door, said, Mr. Askew, we have a water pump, we got to tap this thing. I said, for crying out loud. He's called me and told me that this was going to be here when I get home. It runs for almost a month and a half. Oh, this is the quietest one we got. But I live like that. I called his direct project manager. He cussed me out and hung up on me. Yeah. I'm trying to explain to him what's going on. He cusses me out, hangs up on me. They're not going to do what it is we asked them to do. One day, it got so bad, they blocked the road off. Didn't tell me people coming through my driveway to get back to Gadsdenville Road because they block off Garden Hill Road because they're doing this project. Nobody tells anybody in the community about what's going on. They just completely disrespect and walk over our simple wishes and needs. And that same day, the police were called. The police were called. Did they tell y'all that? Charleston County Police were called because people were pitching voices. People were making threats and innuendo. I think my neighbor, what they told me, he pulled a gun on one of the survey guys.
Mr. Askew, we ask you just to stay, with points.
But what I'm telling you, what I'm explaining to you,
I understand.
is the historic appropriateness. You have to have the attitude, the want, and the need to do it, and they're just not going to do it. What they're going to do is try to muddy the waters, just like Mr. Leesman did, telling you about how much they bought the property for, what they thought they could do. And if I'm out of line, then excuse me. But I have to tell you this, so when going forward, when these people erase and wipe over everything we've done in 10 Mile, you know how and why. And I also want to tell you one more thing. One last thing, and I'm going to leave. What you guys have to realize in communities like this, and I wish that I thought that this young man would do some of the things we asked him to do, but he didn't. He didn't. Black people could not borrow money. People could not borrow money from the federal government until 1968 to build houses. That's why the character of houses in our community looks like it does. We had to build houses from our pocket, our own funding. So as you consider historical appropriateness, the average black person in America, especially in Charleston, South Carolina, where the average income for a black person is $30,000.
Sir, thank you. I've got to call time on that.
The historically appropriate for your home is going to be very different.
I know. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I want you to understand, we are looking at this individually. You know, this is,
Yes, and
we
I
can't.
appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
I
And we
appreciate
cannot
that.
stop the development.
No, and I understand that as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Won't be that long. But I appreciate everything he said.
Passionate, I get it.
So I'll read this real quick, okay? I do stand against this development. Character does matter to me. I'm a young 74. I live 1022 Theodore Road. Now, we have met with the developer. We have met with Mount Pleasant manager. We have met with the county. Straight no chaser. I told them I don't trust them. Craig just reemphasized the same thing. Trust matters. Character matters. So to overlook all these things for the gentleman who talk about the $20,000 that was paid and the $485 that they paid, it doesn't mean a thing. Appropriateness means a lot. So please, if you want us to stand to our guidelines that are set forth, then make sure the developer do the same thing.
It's Vanderhorst, correct? Mr. Vanderhorst?
That's the duplicate.
Capers, I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name on that second time, sir. I just want to make sure we're correct.
My apologies.
No worries. Thank you, sir.
We both bald heads.
Very Woo. Capers, all right. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon again. My name is Marilyn Glover, and I live at 3840 Victoria Glover Lane, Nolendal. And again, I'm against this development for the same reasons I said before. And I'd just like to add one more thing. A development of this enormity should at least consider the people they're putting into the community as well as those who are there, because these people don't have anywhere to walk. The water has nowhere to go. And I'm saying you building houses, but what about the infrastructure? And a development of this enormity should put some monies back into the community. Are they taking it all? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. Last but not least.
Good afternoon again. Filippo Ravalico, 510 Live Oak Drive, Mount Pleasant. I want to call back what Mr. Pinckney brought up on the first comment in opposition. I mean, on the one hand, you are so careful of following everything that the LDR says and does, to the point of ignoring what the Historic Preservation Ordinance says, and I have here a copy if you have lost yours. And yet he brings up that the plat has expired, because that's the clear letter of the law, and I can read it if I found it. It's too much stuff. No. One of the criteria for you to consider this application is that the application is complete. No application for a certificate of historic appropriateness shall be accepted as complete unless it includes the required fee and the following information. And then you go down, and you have, as applicable, proposed subdivision plats. If the preliminary plat is lapsed, it has no further value. They need to go back and redo it. This is not just legalistic reasoning. Makes a big difference. It would force them to do a traffic study that they avoided just because that goes back to 2020. The LDR are changed in the meantime. It's really, I understand this is a difficult job, and I appreciate your service, because new commission with a very important purpose and very gray areas to address, especially with this legacy, so to call, project. But the ordinance is reasonably clear, and I really encourage you to follow. The focus, as I said before, is the core of the historical, cultural value and significance of the 10 Mile is the sense of place, is the pattern of development. Mrs. White letter gives you a summary, and there's much more detail, about the actual patterns of developments. Are these Anyways, I'm kind of contradicting myself because I'm asking you to address something that you shouldn't even address because the preliminary plat is lapsed. So thank you again for your service, and I hope you vote with conscience.
Thank you. Let me see if anyone else would like to speak in opposition?
Same reasons that I stated before.
Thank you. We've already been at this place, so I'd
like to give a motion, and it is the same motion as last time. Madam Chair, would you be willing to recite that motion again for me?
Ooh, I'll be reciting it in my sleep tonight, I believe, but yes, sir. Let me, there's been a motion made to consider each individual lot and the home selected for each individual lot will be scrutinized based on the criteria necessary and significant to historic preservation of a designated area.
Thank you. That is my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion before we vote? Any discussion? No?
I'll make a comment.
Okay, I was waiting, Pat.
Might tick
Okay.
some people off.
Well,
but
let's keep it, remember, we're moving forward.
Something that I've said for years, rather than anywhere. And I don't know how much we can do about what the.
Okay, it's time to vote. As staff, please to call roll.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Court of Charleston County. Each appeal should be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. All right, I'm assuming we are moving forward, even though we're 077. A request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. Emily?
Thanks. This is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness for a proposed 082, a property within the 10 Mile Community Historic District. The 10 Mile community was designated as a historic district in June of 2022. Prior to that, this property was subdivided into 2 lots. Here's the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. Here's a map of the 10 Mile Historic District showing the location of the subject property off of Beehive Road. The subject property is zoned low density residential R4 and is undeveloped. The future land use designation is urban, suburban, cultural community protection. Surrounding properties are also zoned R4 and contain either single family dwelling units or are undeveloped. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. As stated previously today, the 10 Mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social organization and settlement patterns. Here are images of the subject property and photos of the neighboring properties along Beehive Road. Here's the proposed site plan showing the existing lot with the proposed house and driveway. This is the tree and topographic survey and the floor plan for the proposed house. And the applicant provided responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. And because the approval criteria have been satisfied as applicable, staff recommends approval.
Commission members.
I have a question for
Yes.
Joel or whichever staffer might have this most hand we have to work with in terms of building location and siting and driveway location.
Right. There's a 29-inch oak up front.
Would you like me to toggle to the tree and topographic survey?
Yeah.
Near to it, yes.
Yeah. So then we have the 27 up front and the 56 in the other corner. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Anyone else? Questions, discussion? Okay, for staff. All right, is the applicant present? Anyone let's speak in support of the request? Your name and your address, please.
Chamberlain Chestnut, 5 Cedar Street, Charleston, South Carolina. I'm the applicant. We did receive one letter of support that was in. You're saying you didn't receive it?
That was for the other application.
Oh, for the other one. We have 2 applications which are side by side. The home builder purchased both of these lots, and we have 2 separate applications, one for each house. So you'll hear me again on the second application.
Okay.
We're going for a more affordable housing here. That was the goal of these 2 projects, Southern Vernacular Designs, and we did meet with the tree arborist, and there won't be any tree impacts that we need to remove or cut. Each lot is 0.26 acres, so they are larger lots than what you have previously heard tonight.
2.2. How big is the lot?
0.26, just over a quarter acre.
Not very big. Okay.
I'm just here to answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Would it be possible to be, with the trees and the site design, to be able to move those front entry garages into more of a side garage or a setback garage? There was an example of the neighboring house that showed the garage was set back, and the house has a distinction from the garage instead of the front-facing direct entrance. Could you do that without impacting the trees?
We did look at that and studied that, but with the setbacks and the auto turn analysis that we need to get into the side load garage, it wouldn't be possible.
Could you do it so with a front garage, but just having it detached from the main body of the house? Like if you see there where the garage is set, it's still facing, it's still a front-loaded garage, it's just a side structure. It's separated from the main body of
The home builder is here, and he could speak on any changes of plans. I can't authorize any change of plans.
Okay.
Mark, do you want
to? Please.
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Lipsmeyer, 1814 Crown Commons Way, Johns Island. The simple answer is we're open to some suggestions from the board on architectural elements. Just keep in mind, when you detach a garage, it does cost about 35% more when you detach a garage. We're trying to keep the price point down to make it more affordable. Also, we haven't, as far as the tree impact, I don't know by detaching a garage or making a side load garage, is that going to impact the canopy of the grand trees. We've had the arborist out, as Chamberlain mentioned, out to the site to ensure that we're not impacting grand trees, because that is not what we want to do, never have. But again, the bottom line is we're open to some suggestions, and if we can make accommodations, we certainly will be able to. We will do that.
I have a question. I heard the term a couple times, affordable housing. What's the price point of these homes?
It's going to be in the 400s. Is the medium household income is in
Yes, sir.
370.
Yeah, I know. Sadly, that is affordable housing.
That
these
is
days,
affordable
but I was
housing, yes.
Curious. Okay. Any questions for the? Okay. Anything else, sir?
No, ma'am. I'm
Okay,
here
thank-
to answer any questions needed.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? I said we had no one else in support. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Is there any other questions that you have for us?
Anyone? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, again, if there's anyone in opposition, I'd love for you to come up again and speak, and again, just keep in mind
2
the
minutes.
timeframe. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Ed Pinckney, 3768 Robbie Glover Road, Owendale, South Carolina, 29429. This is the first time I've seen the design, so I won't speak on that. What I will speak on is one section of the approved criteria, again, is the Secretary of Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties. We would ask that you enforce that specifically, because this area of our community is essentially open graves. And if you were to come to 10 Mile, you would see gravestones in this area. So part of the historic treatment is the inspection for historic artifacts. We would ask that the applicant identify the remains of our relatives if they exist, inform us, so that we may inter them respectfully in our community church. We do not want to see their remains discarded or a foundation laid on top of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there need any discussion on that? No. Anyone else in opposition like to speak?
Again, Jerome Vanderhorst, 1039 Theodore Road. I have to say again, safety is everybody's concern. Please do a speed study, traffic study. And I was just watching, looking at the two developers. They looked at each other when they said about the grave sites, like, we didn't do an inspection of the ground. So I just read the faces, so I know they're not doing the right things. Thank you.
Francis White, 2015 Hammond Drive, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Regarding lot sizes and prevailing patterns, the original lot size was more in line with the prevailing patterns and lot sizes in the community. Splitting the original lot into two lots similar to a small number of lots that are in the community compared with the majority of the historic district. The applicant mentions that the home sizes will be approximately 2,200 square feet, which they believe is close to the average home size in the community. The home plans presented in the packages for homes approximately 2,800 square feet. I question the size of the homes being built, especially for the lot size, in contrast with the character of the community. Lots that are less than 0.4 acres with homes greater than 2,000 square feet is not a prevailing characteristic in this community.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again. Timothy Craig Askew, 987 Gadsdenville Road. The applicant, these gentlemen, I've never seen them. I don't know them. Again, we live in a historic settlement community. And it's obvious that we come from two different cultures. I'll say this about this build. You're going to bring families from I don't know where to live in 10 Mile, a predominantly black neighborhood, a predominantly Gullah Geechee neighborhood. Left. Y'all, they need to, and I want you guys to put this as a requirement, if you can, in the Historic Preservation Commission. They need to go to a racial union in a better place. They need to understand that. Again, there's no infrastructure. We're not saying not to build the homes, but when you come in, let's get to know each other. How do we do that? I don't know. This is not a traditional subdivision. You're implanting a subdivision within a Racial Equity Institute class done locally here by the YWCA, LaVonda Brown, so they can understand how we got here and why the homes look like what they look like. So they don't come to me or somebody else and make harsh, vast, wrong statements and assume different things.
Good afternoon again. Filippo Ravalico, 510 Live Oak. Personal or subjective about the individual applicant or individual proposal. It's about the application itself. I think if you could bring up the responses they provided to the 4 criteria. In light of this discussion we had before about the Crescent Home application, I'm concerned that, and more than the letter C, which is what Mr. Pinkin brought up, and then, of course, the letter D, which is what Mrs. White brought up. This is, you're starting to see more and more of this application. You're kind of setting the starting guidelines of practice of this commission. And in a way, you're kind of schooling all of us, including the developer and the committee, about what is in line with the law, what is expected. And I think you're set, if you accept as historic appropriate an application with this level of information share of detail, you're setting the bar way too low to achieve the goal of the commission of the ordinance. So this is about the...
Did you want C?
And letter C, and then if we go back to letter D, it's, again, prevailing patterns, existing lot density, spacing of home lot. The applicant, and I'm pretty sure they took a page from Crescent Home applications, they have a very generic statement about, yes, there are a couple of dozen lots that are small, like ours. But that's not proving the prevailing patterns. That's a very incomplete, insufficient, and inconclusive criteria to prove that this is an appropriate historically cultural application. That's why we oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speak in opposition before we move forward? Before discussion, is there a motion and a second from the commission? And again, I believe
I have a question.
okay.
Joel or Mark, is it possible for us to provide feedback on the direction of the design and form to the applicant to enable them to revise and resubmit, or do we need to do that through the form of a deferral?
I think that automatically, if you're asking for more information, it becomes a deferral because the commission is saying that they can't make or they don't want to make a decision without further information or refining something. So, that's my take, Mark. I mean, do you have any?
If the commission feels that they need more information, you should make that in the form of a clear motion to the applicant that you'd like to defer this matter to a later date, giving them a specific request from them so that they can provide you with the appropriate information and a time frame which they can come back.
I'd like to make a motion to defer to encourage the applicant to revise and resubmit, and I can provide some feedback of the direction that I would want them to go in, if any, and we can do that during the discussion, but I'll just provide that and if someone wants to second.
I would like us to consider the presence of ancestors on that property. And if our commission can think about that or have them look at it to study that, or, I'm very concerned about that. The ancestors buried there.
Would you consider being a second to my motion to defer to revise and resubmit?
Absolutely. And
Include that. Include that.
Thank you.
All right. So would you please state your motion?
So my motion is to defer, to encourage, to allow the applicant to revise and resubmit the designs and pursue a archaeological investigation of the property to determine if there are the potential of any archaeological or other remains found on the property.
African American remains,
African American remains.
specifically.
Okay. Well, shorthand such as it is, so we have a motion, we have a second. And at this point, I have the motion is to encourage or to allow the applicant to resubmit the designs and also to invest or have a study done to make sure there are, and if there are any African American artifacts or remains, that they will be treated with the respect and the appropriateness that would be done through these particular organizations. Is that correct? These a group that would come in and do the study or do the.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Our issue is, are we kicking the can down the road? We don't know what y'all are trying to achieve within the application. Like if you go downtown to the city of Charleston and you go in front of the BAR, which I go quite often, there's standards. So we could follow those standards and design our homes to those standards, such as Marvin windows. But we don't know. There's concrete block homes, there's brick homes, there's wood homes, there's mobile homes, manufactured homes. There's a complete mix, and that's what the confusion is for developers and builders, such as Crescent Homes before. They don't know what to do.
Madam Chair, may I?
Go ahead, please.
We can't discuss until we get to a motion, so I have some feedback of direction that I think I'd recommend you to go towards. We needed to get to the ability for you to revise and resubmit, because unlike the BAR that has the standard of revise and resubmit, we have to follow the motion process to get to that point to be able to give you the feedback of the direction that I'm planning on providing for myself of the direction that I think you need to go in.
But that's just your opinion. What about the 7 other folks that are here? That's my concern, is if we submit it to what you propose tonight and we bring it back at a later date, and then English or someone else wants to go a different direction, then we're just kicking that can down the road, and we don't know what to build. We don't know what is appropriate for the neighborhood that would get approval. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I understand what you're trying to say, but I think that at this point, if I'm understanding you correctly, and the mindset here is that this is really a deferral, and to have more time to see if to study, to see if there are artifacts possibly, or and this is different. This is different because we have a historic designation. Right. Okay, this is not just downtown where you got to have certain window, based on historic, significance. This is different. So that being said, we're not saying that the design, we're not crashing your development. We're not saying the design's not okay, but we would like time to look at the design and decide, is it going to be in the best interest? And also, there should be a study to see if there are remains or artifacts in this particular location.
One more thing I'd like to add. I know what our commission does, but us looking at properties and designating them historically is one thing, but then you have developers building on these properties that are historic in historic areas. Is there anything in our bylaws or whatever that says that you have to consider that this may be ancestral land that some of these developers are coming in on? They may not even be concerned about that, but the people that are there are concerned about that, and some of us are concerned about that. So maybe we can add that in, because that's going to happen. With all this development going on in these Black communities, our people are buried there, and that's important. That's sacred ground to me. Mm-hmm. And it may not be to others because your ancestors are not there, but that has to be considered.
Yes, I agree, and I think that there are laws and there are standards and there are mandates to that. And I think that the builder, would you like to speak to that? Just real quickly?
Really, 1 minute.
Because that is very important, and I agree.
I think what Chamberlain was trying to say is 2 different issues, obviously. We've done cultural resources studies all over Charleston, so I'm very familiar with that, and that will be done. Absolutely out of respect, and we don't want to go start digging a foundation and find out there's a grave on site. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Okay, so the second thing is on the design, and basically, and I understand Mr. Crowley's comments. This is the first time I've been in HPC, so I'm not certain how this goes, but from a design criteria, it needs to be specific as to what the deferral would be, so we know what to come back with. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was it.
Thank you. Mr. Crawley, would you like to expand on that statement that you made earlier?
I want to have a chance to have a discussion as a commission of what we want to see the direction of this building going forward, looking at where that falls into our process. If we need some guidance from council and staff of where that falls in. If we can talk about this now without the motion in place, you're still going to end up with a deferral because you're going to need to be able to revise and resubmit. But, I want to be able to talk about the building because that's what we're here for. And in addition, there has been concern raised about potential undiscovered, unidentified cultural resources that are anecdotally potentially on the property. So we need to give time for that investigation to be pursued as well. So perfect. 2 things have raised, but we are also here to look at the building. We have to do that at some point as well. So where do we do that in this process?
I think the applicant, to be fair to the applicant, to give him, as he has stated, everything that is expected that the commission knows to this date, that what they want to see. The archaeological findings are right. I mean, that's right up the alley and purview of a HPC in a historic district. requesting that should be, almost be a default question now that we've heard it, you know, in some of these historic districts could you provide information regarding that? And then, and I mean, the common theme that we're seeing is that we have an applicant, they want to do something, tell them what you want. Yeah.
That's
right.
May I
Yes.
proceed
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
direction that I would like for you to go in? So
I think so.
until we change our process, we have to do this based on the discussion in the motion of which we are in, because it has been motioned and seconded. So, hi there, I'd like to talk about your site plan. These are my opinions of where I would like to see this to go as one commissioner. I believe that this property, this proposal could be improved by exploring whether or not you can move that driveway over to be accessed on the side. Whether you choose to have a garage on the side or not is up to you, but I do not support the idea of having this drive under garage. I think that detracts from the character of the community, having this front-loaded house garage. I also believe that there needs to be a raised foundation, slab or crawl space, having this straight built on the ground entrance throws off the scale of the overall building, and there needs to be some further elevation to give a distinction of that porch. I also don't like that brick knee wall on that lower floor under the porch. So those are some opinions that I would like to provide as some feedback. And I think that and I will pause there and let other people talk.
So am I to understand that we are going to ask for a study, that a study on the time that we have here, that we have a study done that will show that this has been?
I think some sort of documentation that would satisfy whether or not there are any.
We can easily supply that for you
Okay.
at our next meeting. Absolutely.
Okay. And that's.
Let me ask you a question real quick, Jason. Instead of just asking questions,
Yep.
is your concern over the look of like a white garage door, like most subdivisions in America have? If you went to like different, maybe like a faux wood or something like that, or a painted door, would that ease your concerns on the side load?
I just think if you look at the contributing properties in this district, the ones that were actually drawn into the boundaries of the district, you won't find an example of this house.
Got it.
So you don't have that drive-in garage into the building of the house, but there was a very specific example of a garage that was put onto the side of the house, which is directly across the street, as an example of a prevailing pattern example. Also, you have that raised up crawl space so that you have steps up to the porch. That, I think, fits more into the character of this community than the directly built on the ground. There are houses right up the road that you can tell are very distinctly out of character with the district, and they all have that drive under garage and direct slab on the ground.
Okay.
It'll also make more resilient.
Yeah, definitely more resilient. Flooding.
Any other comments on architecture that we could?
I think we all, I myself took the time to go and visit the community because I think that's important, and to have a feeling of what these individuals, how they live and what they're experiencing. And I agree, because I live in the old community too, and it's important to have communication with the developers, and not having sidewalks and not having things like that are pertinent when you have a lot of building. So I agree with Jason. I think it's just a matter of paying attention to what's around, and maybe there's some difference there. I agree with you, but there is a theme. There is an overall theme, and I think that's just from talking to maybe the residents and also being taking the time to look around.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion or comment?
Yes. Under our ordinance, number F, approval criteria, item D, says must demonstrate consistency with the prevailing patterns of existing lots, densities, spacing of homes, lot sizes and shapes, and other characteristics of the historic district that the Historic Preservation Commission deems applicable. And I have a question for staff. When there's the first hint of somebody, a developer who wants to build a house, a spec house, are they shown our ordinance, what we're responsible for? Because it doesn't sound like it. And if they were, they wouldn't be designing what they're designing.
We provide all the applicants the approval criteria and go over that with them.
So they're aware of item D, number F, approval criteria?
Emily, you go over all that with them?
That's correct, and they responded to that approval criteria.
Well, I don't see it in what you've got here.
There's a mix of different homes. Like I said, there's brick one-story homes, there's concrete block homes, there's wood homes, there's manufactured homes and mobile homes, new construction homes as well, just like across the street that's just not too old. So there's a wide range. There was no direction on where to go. That's why we're here for our first pass, to quite understand. And I think Crescent Homes before us, with their two applications, they were kind of facing the same difficulties as they and I were kind of saying the same thing.
But if you look at not the new homes that are being built, at the historic homes and the lot sizes, you will not see 0.22 acres. This was a farming community. They had large lots because they were farmers, and they were farmers because they were self-sufficient.
We didn't subdivide this. They purchased the lots that were already pre-subdivided, so that was before their time. So these are 0.26 acres, and like I said, these were on the open market. They purchased them to build two homes. They didn't do any subdivisions or anything like that.
They were sold as, that's what they were sold as.
They were sold individually platted next door to each other.
Then
By the people that lived there, that was their property.
Yeah, they lived there. They subdivided it and then they sold it and moved away.
That's not true, Ray. That property was lost for the sheriff's sale, and someone bought it, and they subdivided.
Okay, thank you, sir, though. I appreciate, I'm just trying to follow a sequence, but I appreciate that, thank you. Any other discussion? That makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have, I'm not sure, do we have an actual motion here? I mean, what is?
We have a motion to
defer.
And it's seconded.
Okay, all right, so motion defer and seconded with some criteria that we've established. Roll call.
All right. Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Smalls Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, all right. This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in this decision of the Preservation Commission chooses to appeal it, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County, and the appeal must be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. Moving forward, the next agenda item is HIST 03-23-00078, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. Again, Emily, please discuss.
Thank you. So we'll be looking at that neighboring lot now. So this is a certificate of historic appropriateness for a proposed single-family dwelling unit at TMS 614-0000371, or sorry, 731, a property within the 10-Mile Community Historic District. The 10-Mile Community was designated as a Charleston County Historic District in June of 2022. And prior to that, the property was subdivided into two lots. Here's the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. And also showing the historic district with the location of the subject property off of Beehive Road. The property is zoned low-density residential R4 and is undeveloped. Future land use is urban, suburban, cultural, community protection. Surrounding properties are zoned R4 and contain either single-family dwelling units or are undeveloped. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. And again, the 10 Mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social organization and settlement patterns. Here are images of the subject property and surrounding properties. Here's the proposed site plan showing the existing lot with the proposed house and driveway. And again, the tree and topographic survey. We're here looking at lot 2. Here are the elevations of the proposed home. Again, there's an option for a brick front elevation. And the floor plan of the proposed home. And the applicant did provide responses to all of the approval criteria that apply. And as such, staff recommends approval. We did receive 1 letter in support and 4 letters in opposition for this request. And of course, it was always noticed as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. So again, I know this is very obviously
Yeah, to save
comparable.
time and
So I'm assuming that we're going to continue the same process. And
We're fine with
is there
that. We
anything
can
that you'd
defer.
like to add before we just go ahead and
no,
move
ma'am.
forward?
We're good with the cultural studies, and we can defer the
Okay,
application.
very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Again, the opposition, you still have the opportunity to speak. I just assume that, we're on the same page with, thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the same motion.
Yes,
as
sir.
before.
Please make the motion. It's the same motion?
Same
Okay,
motion.
that's easy. All right, would anybody like to second that motion? Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? I think we're all clear. Yes, ma'am.
Question. So the same house plan was submitted for both lots?
No.
Slightly.
No, they were
A
slightly
little
different.
different, just a little different, yeah.
It's hard.
Not much different.
Not
though.
much.
Let me look at the bottom
They look
facade, the bottom facade he was talking about on one particular. Okay, so we've got the same motion to have a defer this, and I think it's time, it's been seconded, time for the vote.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Smalls Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
And again, if you'll bear with me with this, the formalities of this is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of this commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so in the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Each appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. Okay, the next agenda item is HIST 02-23-00075. Again, a request for historic certificate of historic appropriateness. Emily?
Thank you. This is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness for a barn dominium at TMS 583-00-00041, which is a property within the Phillips Community Historic District. The Phillips community was designated as a historic district in August of 2021. There was a retroactive clearing and grubbing application approved in June of 2022, and this property is included within a site plan review application for the Phillips Community Drainage Project. This is the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. Here's a map of the historic district showing the location of the subject property off of Canyon Lane. The Phillips community is a Reconstruction-era South Carolina Land Commission platted community, and the district, when designated, covered roughly 420 acres. The subject property is zoned Special Management S3 and is undeveloped. The future land use designation is Urban, Suburban, Cultural, Community Protection. Surrounding properties to the north, east, and south are also zoned S3 and contain either single-family dwelling units, manufactured housing units, or are undeveloped. The property to the west is Zone PD 142, the Commons at Canyon Lane, and is undeveloped but allows for 22 single-family dwelling units. Here is an aerial view of the subject property. and images of the subject property. These are photos of nearby properties that were listed as contributing resources within the Phillips Community Nomination Form for National Register listing. And these are surrounding properties that were not listed as contributing. Here is the proposed site plan showing the barn dominium and gravel driveway along with the septic drain field. And the floor plan, as well as the elevations. The applicant did provide responses to all of the approval criteria that apply. And because the approval criteria have been satisfied, staff recommends approval with the following condition. 1, the siding shall not be made of metal. We have received 3 letters in opposition and 19 letters in support for this application. And this meeting was noticed as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for your report. Are there questions for staff from commission members before we move forward? Hearing none, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in support of this request? Your name and your address, please, sir.
My name is Dietrich Stelges. This is going to be my permanent residence for my wife and I, Renee. My address is 1555 Joe Rouse Road, right there in the Phillip community. We are looking to build a barn dominium. We have a camper that we'd like to store inside, and we would like to store our boat inside that has a T-top on it, so it will need to have a large garage door. A little bit better pictures of what we're trying to do. Miss Emily told me originally to go do some research on the historical prospect of the area. I found a survey from, I want to say it was 1871 or 1874. I can't read the writing. I got a copy of it on my phone, but I still can't read the writing. That divided all that area up from the plantations for the freedmen. And it says white and black in writing on all the paperwork I read, historical documents. It was a farming community for all of the freedmen. So that's why I figured a barn dominium would fit into that criteria. On the other side of Highway 41, there's already a barn dominium there. It's pretty big. I don't want one that big. I just want one big enough to put my 24-foot boat in there with the trailer and the motor. I need right around 35 feet. If you look at the inside of if you go to the floor plan, this is all living space, 1 bedroom for my wife and I, a den with a big fireplace, storage room, bathroom, and the kitchen area. My boat will fit about right there. Gives me enough room for a workbench. Our trailer will take up that whole side over there. I'm not looking to start a business or anything. I'm looking to store my toys, her toys, I guess you could say. I got a nice boat. Never thought I'd have a nice boat. I want it inside. The way I've got if you could go to the plat, please. The way I've got the house positioned back here in the back corner of the lot does not allow me to put another structure out here. This grouping of trees is gorgeous. I take care of these trees like better than my kids. They've been fertilized, irrigated. There's one grand tree sitting right here that has got a dirt berm around it to keep everything away from it. This ditch right here drains the whole community. This is my ditch that I maintain for everybody. It's not a county ditch. And it leads all the way through the whole neighborhood, draining everybody out to the creek. My drain field is here. The company that owns this piece of property here would not allow me to go across their property to get water. So I was only able to get water by getting a well, and there's no sewer attached to my lot. Reading over the letters of recommendation and non-recommendation, excuse me for using the wrong terms. But y'all have gotten this letter in your packet, I'm sure. This one's from Mr. Habersham. Never met the man in my life. First off, this is not an accessory dwelling. This is going to be my home. Okay? It may not be a conventional home, but it is a barn which fits the historical appropriateness, in my opinion, as being a farming community. Boy, I need some water. He talks about my other piece of property on, oh, sweet, thank you very much. Pardon me. He talks in this letter about my other piece of property on Joe Rouse Road that was, quoting, for one thing and became something else. Back in 97, I bought 3 acres of land from a gentleman further up on Highway 41. He could not sell his land because Mr. Coaxum's fence was on his property. He had a legal issue that no bank would lend him the money. I saw the for sale sign in the ditch, and I picked it up, called Mr. Waring, who lived right there on Long Point Road, so I'd like to buy that land. Took care of the problem that was there on Joe Rouse Road, started planting plants, and started growing a landscaping business. I went through the county, got proper zoning, applied for a small business. Forget what he called it. Mr. Blacklock did it back in the, umpteen years ago. Frank Blacklock, I think it was his name. But he helped me get the zoning right on that piece of property. Since then, it's now changed to S3. I don't know when that happened, but it happened. It's not a construction business. It's a landscaping business. I've got a business license from the county of Charleston, and I'm stated as a landscaping company. He said there's excess traffic on Highway 40, on Joe Rouse Road, excuse me, from large trucks. Yeah, I own a couple of large trucks. They go out first thing in the morning, and they come back in the afternoon. They do not go back and forth into my property. They're out working jobs, bringing dirt in. So when I got this letter yesterday,
Oh, it went off. Okay.
I know it's important, but we for the sake of time, just, we're trying to give everybody just a fair amount of time to speak, and I understand but we're really trying to
okay, I'll try and hurry up, but this is my home.
I understand, sir.
My home. And I have this gentleman right here I've never met who's calling me all kinds of things that I don't appreciate. I've helped more people in the community. I've lived in the community. I've talked to everybody on Joe Rouse Road. I've talked to everyone on Canyon Lane. I've gone up and down Bobo Road, and knocked on doors. Whoever opened the door, I talked. Those 19 letters of approval, I generated those by talking to people and asking them to sign a letter. Nobody had an issue with me. I had one lady that had an issue about me clearing it before I got a permit. As soon as I got the stop work order, I came straight down here, got it straightened out, did what I needed to do to get it right. I do apologize for that. I wasn't trying to pull wool over anybody's eyes. I did not realize I needed a clearing permit. As for the ditch going through the property, I put a 12-inch pipe, about that big around, to help drain off the center of my property into my ditch that goes through my piece of property. The road is for the people who own the property, the residents of that road. That means that road is mine. I have taken my personal tractor, gone out there, backfilled the holes, leveled off the road. And I have one gentleman come and chastise me for working on the road. I was trying to help the community. Since then, I've done it again, and everybody's been a lot nicer. Everybody was appreciated except for this one guy. I don't understand why I'm generating a bunch of traffic on the road. I don't see that. I'm not living there right now, for one thing, but it is my property, and it is going to be my residence. Okay, so I picked up the street. I'm taking care of the ditch. I've employed a bunch of people from the community, so I do care about the community. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I've been out there for 27 years. Used to live on the opposite side of the highway before that house burned down umpteen years ago. Now let me check my wife's notes. That's about it. I understand about siding. I would really like to find an old barn and skin it with an old barn siding to make it truly look like an old barn. But I'm still looking for that. There'll be if you go to one of the pictures of the house, this will be either a brick or a stone water table. Like to do hardy plank on the house side of it, on three sides of it, which would be the house, which would be, or maybe even the whole side that's facing the road. But I would like to try and do steel on the back side of it, just to try and save some money. Other than that, give me a call. I'll be right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition?
Yes. Can I ask a question before my 2 minutes start?
Yes, sir.
I think we should, if we can just take a minute more to explain where we're at on this. You're looking at whether you approve the building or not. I think we need to kind of look a little bit of what's been done to the property already. So
Sir, can I ask you to, come up and state your name and your address and.
My name is Jonathan Ford. I live at 2906 Canyon Lane. I guess I'm the gentleman that he says it's chastising, but there's no chastisement. It is my intent that anyone that comes into the neighborhood to try to be a good neighbor. But before you approve or disapprove this building, you have to look at what's already been done to the building. That ditch that runs alongside the property is a county ditch. The property owners is given an easement for that ditch to be there. There's I think he doesn't know that we've got an ongoing problem with the county in the ditch because the ditch floods. And the ditch floods Mr. Habersham and Mr. Small's property. But he doesn't know that is an issue. So by him putting the pipe into the ditch, which is a county ditch, that's going to make flooding worse on the two pieces of property. So I think most of this just takes that we have to be able to communicate and not be divisive. The day I spoke to him, I was telling him that everybody's property runs into the center of the road. So, before you do anything, you need to kind of let the people in the area know what's going on. They came to me wanting to know what was going on. And so I think I approached them in a good neighborly way. So you have to look at one, his water is running into the ditch, which is causing two other properties to flood more than they're flooding before. The sand berm that's already there with the fence on top of it, you have to look to see is that in county specs, because it's probably a 6-foot sand berm with a fence on top of it. And so then our concern is that it never be anything other than residential, is because when his business and that other house on 41 he's talking about, when those things took place, we weren't there to be in opposition. That building that he says is a barn dominium already, we don't even know how that got approved or built. So I think we need to look at what's there already as compared to just not the building itself. And our aim is to just to preserve our community to where you can live there, not to be divisive and the fuss. So if you thought that I chastised you, then I apologize. He needs a direct. I can't even spoke to you as a man. Thank you.
Sir.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yes, my name is Richard Habersham, the president of Phillips Community Association. This project is one of the reasons why we became a historical district. Like he said, when he built his business, we didn't have a choice in that. The zoning at the time, since it was regular agriculture, his business fell under agricultural. That's why he got that business there, not because the community wanted that business. It's because it was already zoned that. He got his property was recorded in mid 2022. He received a permit in June 2022. We became a historic district in 2021. Now, here's the problem. I've done the same thing too. You know, I'm not arguing the point about that he started clearing. I cleared a piece of property. I had to come before this board, get a permit. He never came to this board to get a permit, that retroactive permit. So what I'm saying, y'all got two standards here, and we got other people in the community too is waiting on a permit, the same thing that he did. He didn't come and get a retro permit. He didn't come before this board. And this is why we became a historical district, so we can have that say-so in the community. Now, the thing is that you see what he already did and what he's doing now, that don't fit. A 4,000 square foot building, we don't have one in the community. There's no 4,000 square foot building, so that don't fit the profile. That don't fit the historical criteria. That is something odd. Like Mr. Ford said about that berm. If he's going to blend in, what other building in the Phillips community have a berm around it with a 4-foot fence? That's 10 feet. And my understanding with the county standard is just a 6-foot fence. Now you got a 10-foot fence around this property. So the whole thing he's doing do not fit the Phillips community, especially that 4,000 square foot building he's proposing. It don't fit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Jerome Vanderhorst. I live at 1039 Theodore Road. I grew up on 2916 Canyon Lane in the Phillips community. First of all, I want to say to Mr. Dietrich, this is not personal. This is nothing against you. We want you to be able to enjoy your land and build your house. But however, there are some stipulations behind that, I think. Take a look at this building here. Please go back to the picture of 2916 Canyon Lane. That's the house I grew up in. That's my mom's house. Do that look like the building that he's trying to put in the area? Nothing like it. And we're a historical we're a historical preservation area. We're trying to keep the houses, just like 10 Mile, in the scope of what's already there now. I don't think that building would fit our criteria or our neighborhood. Like Mr. Havsham said, we weren't a historical building or area back when Coles placed that monumentum on Highway 17. We don't know how it got there, but we weren't paying attention. Me being military, I wasn't involved with the neighborhood. I was gone for so many years, but I'm here now trying to make a difference in my community. My concern is with him putting that barn house on that road, he has heavy equipment. He has trucks. The road we live on is a dirt road. The road is no more than 30 feet, 15 feet across. How is he going to access the road? How is his trucks going to get to his property? Not only maybe his big trucks, maybe his personal vehicles, more traffic on that dirt road that we're going to have to maintain. I granted, and I give him that, he scraped the road for us once or twice, and I said, man, that's a good thing to do. But looking forward, more cars, more traffic, dirt road, 15 feet wide, that proposes even the road being worse. And that's a private road I've tried already to try to get the county to give us some help. Can't do it because it's a private road. The other side of that is he's trying to go down Joe Rouse Road. And again, this is not personal. Mr. Habisham says there's a lot of trucks going on that road too. That's a problem. So with that being said, I don't want to stop growth from you building your home, you and your wife, but please reconsider, board, reconsider to what the housing that's already in the area to make it look like what we already have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Smalls. I live at 2959 Elijah Smalls Road, and my property also borders Canyon Lane. I have never met this gentleman. In every story, there's always two sides. We've heard some things that aren't quite the way they really are. Canyon Lane is a private road. All the property owners, their property goes to the center of Canyon Lane. So we've given up property for Canyon Lane. So it doesn't belong to just anyone, it belongs to all of us. And we maintain our portions of it. Now, he said he did a few things along the way. That's probably true, I don't know. But the ditch that he talks about that he says is his, it is a county ditch that has been in existence since the Phillips community. It not only stops at his property, it comes down from the subdivisions above us, Park West, Dunes West, all the way down to the other end of our community. It is not his ditch. He cannot close that ditch. Another issue is with county. We have been working with county to address the flooding in our neighborhood that's already being done by this ditch. And for him to put another 20-foot pipe into that ditch, coming from his property into that ditch, all the property below his, to include mine, already has a flooding problem. Now that runoff from where he's already clear cut and putting in that pipe is creating another problem. The building is approximately 4,000 square feet, 1,500 square feet of living area, modest living, no problem. That leaves another 2,500 square feet of storage. This is not personal property. All of us in our community, he says it's for his boat and private stuff. All of us in our community, we have boats, tractors, work trailers. It doesn't require that much storage. And again, he already has a commercial business at the other end of our community. And he said his trucks are coming down Canyon Lane to deliver or take dirt. But the business is up on the other end of 41. They don't need to come through Canyon Lane. So why is this happening? That additional traffic. Canyon Lane is a private road. The berm. The berm is approximately 4 feet wide, much taller than I am, because I cannot stand and look over the berm, plus a wood fence on top of the berm. Somebody tell me where the good neighbor policy is there. You come into our neighborhood, and this is the first thing that you do. You put up a berm of that size. It is a huge berm, and it is around the property. Now, this also creates another problem. The property is already clear cut. So all that rainwater is trapped inside. Again, that pipe that he put into the ditch flows into that pipe, goes into the ditch. It generates a lot more water because it can't go into the natural flow. Trees can't absorb any of it because it's already gone. It's clear cut. We in our community has never opposed anyone that wanted to come in our neighborhood and live
with us, not just among us, but live with us. And those are good neighbors. He is not the first white person to move into our neighborhood. So that is not an issue, but it's the way that people come into the community or want to make changes. And as he says, he just makes it happen. You can't come into our community and tell me I'm going to do this to where you've been living all this time and not speak to me. That cannot happen, and we won't allow it to happen. So,
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to please wrap up because we're over.
No
Okay?
problem.
Thank you, sir.
yes, ma'am.
Appreciate your time, though. Anyone?
My name is Merle Ford. I live at 1177 Porsche School Road in Allendale. My daughter lives on Canyon Lane. The gentleman came to her after he had already done everything that he would, wanting her to sign some paper that she was not aware of what it was going to do. And she told him no, she was not going to sign it. But on this site plan, can you bring it back? Can you get it? Right here, it says repair area. Repair what? It has this drain field here. Right here, it says 100,000 gallon, 500 gallon pump tank.
So she's reading it correctly.
What do we need a pump tank for? To pump the water off his property into the ditch? If we leave this a repair area, then it means that, okay, I can come back later and you saw it on the plat, on the site plan, so I can go back and, I don't know what he's up to.
But ma'am, I think that's the septic field replacement area.
Yeah. Not a
Well, I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
Well, it doesn't,
What is it now?
it's not a repair area. It's a septic, from what I read, it's a septic replacement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right
Yes.
here?
Yes, ma'am. It's a
Right-
drain field.
right here.
That's what they call, that's a common note on a plat. That you have to have a septic field, and then DHEC makes you have a replacement area for that septic field in case that
So
original.
would it say replacement area or repair area? Because it says, young lady, can you get this
I can't blow it up, unfortunately, but I can confirm it says repair area.
Yeah. But it's
I
the
mean,
repair
so-
for the septic field if it fails. That's where the area will be. For the drain field, correct.
That's I guess the verbiage.
Right.
Well, why do you need a repair?
DHEC makes you have a repair, a place, you have a certain amount of septic field required for your number of faucets, and then they make you have an area that can replace that in case that ever fails.
I have a septic tank.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that type of note on plastic.
So what are the pumps for? I don't know.
That may be the pump to get to the septic field, I don't know.
What are the pumps?
It says 1,000 gallon, 500 gallon pump tank.
1,500 gallons.
Yeah, it's a 1,000 gallon tank. It's a 500 gallon pump tank. So there's two different ones.
Right, so yeah, that's common to, so it separates out. So then the fluid pumps to the field, out of the tank into the septic field.
So it doesn't have a slope or drainage.
That's why it's got a pump on it, I think, because it's,
Can I explain?
yes.
Okay. The house will drain into the septic tank itself. And out of that septic tank, it goes up
It
to,
has to go uphill.
it goes up to the drain field. Okay? I had to put the drain field only in this location because of the soil conditions. And I had to build the drain field up about that high, above the existing ground, because the soil below was a clay-based soil. So it comes out of the house, goes into the septic tank, goes into the pump tank, and then they asked me to put another tank here to clean it once again to keep the drain field clear. I had to get this whole drain field approved with the repair area through DHEC, which I already have done. So we're pumping up and it's coming down that way. And the big oak tree that's sitting right here, we're about 70 feet away from it, so we'll never disturb that.
No, I don't know any or all about what you're saying. But, so then your driveway with your 2,500 feet extra in the not living space that is for your toys.
Yes, my boat and my camper.
Okay, it's not, I'm trying to direct the conversation to us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, yes, ma'am. I just want to make sure if you had anything else, just direct it to us. Okay. No, sir. I think it's just a opposition or acceptance time. I would hope y'all would talk, though. I hope you would talk. Ma'am, your time, is it real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please just make it.
He says the barn dominion is for the area of Polo, because it's a farming community, but we're no longer a farming community.
Yeah.
We're in homes, single-family homes and dwellings that don't look anything like that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay.
Elijah Smalls, 1660 Highway 41, Mount Pleasant. I've been there, well, I was born and raised in Phillip. Moved back, built in 80. I just want to give a little background. When the subdivisions come in, the first thing they do, they elevate. They have dirt brought in to get the property up higher for the community. This way the water would run off from these new subdivisions. The way I'm affected, everybody's away, everybody farmed. My granddad, I farmed with him. I let people, hey, I have more than my share of, I won't go there. I bought a tractor, bought all the equipment I need to do that, because after retiring, I said, hey, I knew how to farm, and I had 2 boys. Said, hey, I'm going to teach them. To make a long story short, the water, before he did this, before he came, we had the problem of flooding. The ditches are unable to handle the volume of water from all the subdivisions we have. Yorktown, Rivertown, hey, about 7 different communities, and still growing. All this water coming into the old ditch. So naturally the ditch is unable to handle the volume of water. So when the ditch overflows, the area that I would do my gardening, I have about 125 rows long, 125 feet long, 14 rows, which would be a large area. I haven't been able to do anything. The last time I did anything was around 2015, 2016. Why? Because the ground is always saturated. I'm not able to do anything. So, the impact that's already there from the little that you think yours is doing.
Sir, you have to address the commission and not please.
Okay, sorry.
And also the 2-minute bell did ring.
I'm just about done.
Yes,
but the amount of water that he is putting into the ditches being added to what's there already, it's a bad situation. It's a bad situation. And we've been fighting it for about the past 20 years with the county about doing something with the ditches. So I'm totally against it. My place is always saturated.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in opposition to speak? All right. Okay, before discussion, I'm sorry.
Craig Askew, I live at 987 Gadsdenville Road. When I got up to speak earlier, I mentioned something to you guys, and I want to reiterate that because I think it's very important as I sit here and listen to the problems and the communications back and forth. And the communities are growing, people moving in, settlement communities are trying to figure out who's coming, when they come, what kind of impact it's going to have. I would implore each one of you guys to sit through a REI class. I would also implore you guys to make that one of your standards as people come to see if their home style, their developers, individuals, if these will fit in the communities that they're trying to build in. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is an REI class?
Racial Equity Institute.
I've taken it.
And I have as well. I think that you might be surprised how many people have. Yeah.
As we make these decisions, as we bring communities together, bring families together, bring businesses together,
Yes,
that
sir.
would be very helpful.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Before discussion, is there a motion and a second from the commission?
I have a question. For
Okay.
If I remember correctly, we considered a barn dominium last year, or the year before in Phillips. Does anyone happen to have the information on the footprint size of that building?
I'll have to ask.
I don't have the footprint, but you are correct. It was approved off of Bobo Road, and I can get that information for you.
Off of what road?
Bobo.
Bobo Road,
Bobo.
which is also within the Phillips community.
Did we do two? Wasn't there one on Habersham as well?
That I'm not certain. That might have been before my time with the commission.
Maybe it was just the Bobo Road. Thank you.
Can I address that question? No, this is just the commission speaking.
Yeah. Any other question, discussion? Anyone like to make a motion at this time?
I'll move to deny.
Second.
Yeah, you should probably state what criteria does.
I'd like for to ask Ms. Sullivan to state criteria on denial as advised by.
Then I'll go back to our approval criteria, which is must demonstrate consistency with prevailing patterns of existing lots, densities, spacing of homes, lot sizes and shapes, and other characteristics of the historic district that the Historic Preservation Commission deems applicable.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No. Oh, sorry.
Second motion. All right, there's been a motion made of denial and a motion seconded. Is there any discussion on this from commission members?
I have a
Yes, Joe.
comment that I'd like to make.
Mhm.
I recognize the community's concerns with this, and frankly, I have some additional questions about that before we get to a vote on for staff on this berm and the retroactive clearing approval and why. Because I also do remember when Mr. Habersham did have to come in for that retroactive approval, so why that didn't happen last year. But I do have concerns denying this over prevailing patterns, considering that we approved the same thing just a year ago. And so if it has something to do, if we are concerned about the size of the footprint of this building, or again, what we're here to be looking at with the materials and the form and the spacing, for myself, before I would vote to deny, I would want to get more information as to the comparison of this one to the one just a year ago that we approved. But also, in the meantime, Joel, can you answer why that site plan was?
So we've grappled with how to address the issue of clearing the properties prior to getting a permit. And ultimately, we came up with the conclusion that if they've already cleared it and we've issued a ticket and it goes to court, the court has, the clearing has already happened and the court has done their punishment or the requirement from there, and that there's the historic commission can't say, no, you need to undo that clearing. There's no undoing it. If it's a violation, it's a violation, and we take those to issue tickets and take them to court. So that is something that we've been grappling with, and maybe in Mr. Haversham's case, we dealt with it instead of going to court. We dealt with it with coming to the commission. But as far as the berming goes too, that was something that had come up. Go ahead.
I can speak to that, Joel, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So the zoning ordinance doesn't address berms for residential. So that would be permitted through the stormwater department, which it was at the time of the clearing and grubbing retroactive permit. However, also, and I should note that the final inspection reports indicated compliance. And also, as part of the building construction permit that will be coming forth in the future related to this proposed barn dominium, another stormwater permit would be required.
For the construction part.
Any other questions or discussion at this point? Okay, well, there's no other discussion, and it's time for the vote.
Okay. Chair Millar,
No.
Vice Chair Crowley,
No.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Smalls Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
No.
Commissioner Sullivan.
So what,
Your
No.
motion.
Yes,
It's
or
your
yes,
motion.
yes, you
I
agree?
vote to deny, so yes, I say yes, deny.
So ayes have it.
What was the vote?
It is 4-3.
4-3? Okay, this is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in this decision of the Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, you may do so at the Circuit Court of Appeals, the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. And the last item on the agenda, I believe it is
Reference to the other condominium, that's something you would bring up in appeals?
yes, ma'am, I'm assuming so.
He mentioned you would look at.
I think that would be part of your appellate process. Yes, ma'am.
Won't look at. I mean, like you
Well,
said.
at this point, it's, as you saw the vote. Okay. Moving forward. The next agenda item is HIST 02-23-00076, a request for historic appropriateness, certificate of historic appropriateness. Emily?
Great, thank you again. This is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness for a proposed single-family
Yes, just a
dwelling
moment,
unit.
please.
Sir, I believe you can do a new application if you choose to. I just wanted to let you know that was an option as well.
Instead of appealing. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, thanks. Okay, I'm sorry, Emily, for interrupting. Yeah, no, it's good to know.
Okay, I'll start again. So it's a certificate of historic appropriate request for a proposed single-family dwelling unit at 583-00-00289, a property within the Phillips Community Historic District. The Phillips community was designated as a historic district in August of 2021. Here's the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. And a close-up of the property when looking at the historic district. Again, the Phillips community is a Reconstruction era South Carolina Land Commission platted community. And at the time of designation, it covered roughly 420 acres. The property we're looking at now is zoned Special Management S3 and contains a single-family dwelling unit. The future land use designation is urban suburban cultural community protection. Surrounding properties are also zone S3 and contain either single family dwelling units or are undeveloped. Here's an aerial of the subject property and images of the subject property. These are photos of nearby properties that were listed as contributing resources within the Phillips Community nomination form for National Register listing. And here are nearby surrounding properties that were not listed as contributing. Here's the site plan showing the proposed house and driveway and proposed floor plans along with elevations. And the applicant did provide responses to all of the approval criteria as required. And because of that, staff recommends approval. This meeting was noticed as required.
Thank you, Emily. It's been quite a bit to discuss today, right? I appreciate you. Okay, is there anyone present? Oh, excuse me. Are there any questions from staff before we speak in favor or opposition? Or any from the board members to speak to any questions about discussion for staff? Not hearing any. We'll move forward. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of this request? Your name, ma'am, and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Elaine Smalls. I live at 97 Magnolia Avenue, Charleston, South Carolina. It is my desire to build a house on property that was left to me by my father, Elijah Smalls. I grew up in Phillip. I consider, when I speak to people, I talk about being raised in a cocoon, and it was a loving cocoon. I'd like to go back there and raise my grandkids, give them the same opportunity to experience the village mentality. Our village is on life support, but hopefully we can rebuild that feeling that I had as a child, or that feeling that I experienced as a child in Phillip. My house is a single dwelling, as you guys have seen, and that's all that I need to say. The particulars of the house will be discussed by the contractor. I don't square footage and all that good stuff. That's up to him.
Do you have can you tell us just an idea of the square footage? I mean, do you have?
I think it's 24,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't see that.
What? 2,400.
2,400 square feet, okay. Oh, I see, it's right there. My bad, excuse me.
Okay.
Brick veneer.
Yeah, 2,400. Okay. Yeah. Any questions?
Any questions of the applicant? Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this request? Wow, okay. That's all I'm going to say is, woo, we all get, yes, man, we're moving forward, okay. All right, before discussion, is there a motion and a second from the commission?
I move that we accept the proposed floor plan as submitted.
And second.
There's been a motion, and the motion has been seconded to accept the floor plan as submitted. Can we have a roll?
Chair Millar.
Aye.
Maybe reword.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Maybe reword that for not just the floor plan, but the whole.
The whole,
structure.
okay.
Right, yes.
The site plan, the whole,
Right.
okay. Site plan, is that
The application.
Okay.
The application.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Move that the application
Because it
be.
sounded like it was specific to just the
Sorry.
floor plan.
Can't change that floor plan
Sorry,
now.
it's getting late.
No, it's
Yes,
okay. No, no,
very
no.
late.
I move that the application be approved as submitted.
I second.
All right.
Thank you,
Yes.
Joe.
Okay.
All right. Chair Millar.
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Smalls Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell.
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Unanimous. Okay, this is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. any person with a substantial interest in the decision of this Preservation Commission decides to appeal the decision, they may do so at the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days of today's date. That is the last item on the agenda. And any other discussion here?
No way.
All right. It says if there's no, yes, sir.
You guys did a phenomenal job.
Thank you, sir. I mean, this is a labor of love, for sure. If there's no other business, this meeting of the Charleston County Historic Preservation Commission stands adjourned. Commission will hold its next meeting at May 17th in council chambers. Thank you. That's got to be a record.